Good evening, Marvel and DC fans. My name is Ben,
And I am Joe.
and we're just gonna be talking a little bit about Justice League here. We just wanted to do an in-depth review of this thing because I, for one, just wanted to start right off and get into this and just kind of talk about how, in the first place, when I first heard that we were going to get one. Of course, I was super psyched, and especially because when they first announced this, they said that they were going to have Justice League 1 and 2.
Yeah. Also, just so you know, spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen Justice League yet, I wouldn't proceed with caution because we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff in the film. And by the way, welcome to Fanaddicts of Film. Where should we start? How do you want to start on this?
So just wanted to talk first of all, just like how this came about, like maybe perhaps the uniqueness of it. I for one, like. Of course, we all wanted 1 and 2 because that's what they initially announced, and so that's what we thought we were getting. I thought we were going to get a Zack Snyder Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2. These 2.5 hour, 3 hour long episodes of
back to back.
And that's what it seemed like they were doing. Yeah. Maybe we could get into the details about like kind of the uniqueness of what happened here. I mean, we had Zack start it and go into his things that happened, and we had of course, with his daughter and everything, and all these things happened, and had to change directors. But anyway, if you want to add anything about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was the official statement that Zack Snyder, who had shot the majority of the film, had to step down for personal reasons, or chose to step down for personal reasons, his family tragedy. Yeah. Of course, now there are rumors stating that it's possible he was fired by DC, which anything's possible, but so far nothing is confirmed from any official source. Nothing from Warner Brothers or DC. We've been searching the internet to try and find if there's any actual confirmation to this, and every site that we saw basically just said rumors, or it's all speculation. But it doesn't matter. Zack Snyder did have to step down. Brought in Joss Whedon, eventually to help. Originally, he was brought in to help rewrite part of this script. And then he ended up doing some second unit shooting and things like that.
And please let us know if any of you people do know that it was confirmed, because a lot of people are saying. I mean, so many people are saying this, and I could see it happening. I could see it happening, perhaps. But anyway.
Really though, I mean, I can only see that he would be fired because he's been rebuilding the new DC franchise, and why would you have a director? Would you keep a director on if the first 2 films were so badly, or if the Batman vs Superman was received so poorly? Why would you continue to have the same director shoot a near $300 million film at the time before the $25 million in reshoots? It seems like the only reason why he would have been fired is if he was adamantly like, no, this is my film and I have total control, and
So I really think that the reason this is possible is because of contracts. I mean. I remember as soon as BVS came out, it was literally like the next month. Zack was tweeting, "We're filming Justice League right now." Like it was like, forgive me if I'm wrong, everybody. If it was like a month or two, literally a month later, after BVS was still in the theater, they were starting to shoot Justice League, and they were and so they were getting right into the shooting. So this was something that was. I think personally, probably a contract thing. Like they had literally had these scheduled times, and they were like, "Okay, we finished BVS. We have the story ready to go, and everybody's ready to go." So yeah, right. And so that's the point that I'm making, is that they probably in retrospect they realized, because of BVS's underperformance, that became the issue. I'm speculating.
And that's just what we're saying right now, is it's all speculatory. From what I understand, and again, this is speculation, Zack Snyder will not be involved in a directorial capacity for any future DC films, more of an executive producer, because unfortunately, whether you like Justice League or not, it didn't make the money that they were expecting. It didn't get the reviews that they were expecting, and it has a relatively low approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and there's been kind of a reshuffling with producers in DC's division of Warner Brothers, DC Films.
which is a darn shame. And if you are a big Zack Snyder fan of mine, if you are a big, you know what I'm trying to say. If you're a Zack Snyder fan like I am, then you'll agree with me in this. I don't know. I was really psyched to see what he had going. Apparently, there was a lot of things that were supposed to be in this film that got axed because of their mandatory under 2 hour limit.
Yeah.
The CEO, forgive me, his name escapes me right now. I was going to note, forgive me. he mandated that it be under 2 hours.
Well, because there were a lot of the complaint about Batman versus Superman. It was too long, and I'll be honest, I didn't think it was long enough. That's why I really liked the 3 hour director's cut of BVS. It's kind of a shame too that
I think it's the average audience goer though. I think that's
the average audience goer probably doesn't want us to. Even though Marvel keeps churning out 2.5 hour movies, but I have to say for DC, they keep coming under the Marvel mark, but the Marvel set the bar really high, where DC used to have the better films. DC would have Christopher Reeve Superman and the Michael Keaton Batman, where Marvel at the time had like Howard the Duck or the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. But the problem is I don't think the DC they're making bad films. I mean, I think Wonder Woman proved that they're making good films. It's just with technology, with the audience's hunger for these films and the immediacy of it, it's such a popular thing right now. My little comic book culty thing is gone global in the mainstream. They're really having to try very hard and push themselves to try and still be competitive in that realm. And so, of course, there's going to be some mistakes along the way. I just hope that the retooling of the production crew or the producers for this division of Warner Brothers for the DC films, I hope it doesn't stunt what's come before. I don't want another reboot. I think they've established 5 films in their continuity, and I think they just need to keep pushing forward. Not every Marvel movie is good, and I don't mean just the older crappy ones I've talked about, but even going back to from Iron Man on up, they've still had some terrible misfires. So nobody is beyond mistakes, especially when it's scrambling. When these studios are scrambling to throw millions of dollars to push these movies out to meet audience demands, you're going to have mediocre films. I mean, I don't think Thor: The Dark World is a particularly impressive film in the Marvel universe, but say what you will, I think Justice League, just like Batman versus Superman, is going to be an incredibly underrated film. They're 2 really expensive cult films, I believe.
If you're once again, if you're a Zack Snyder fan, like we all know, he has a unique take to the stylistically speaking, and all those other things, and the action sequences are brilliantly executed, I think.
Yeah.
And all these things, especially in BVS, and everybody had a hard time with Batman killing people, etc. All these things, and say what you want about that, but I thought BVS was a complete masterpiece.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they had taken, and of course Zack loves this, like he has this giant epic approach, and especially with Hans Zimmer's music and everything, he has this like huge epic approach to how he wants to execute his vision, and it's this 2.5, 2:45, 3 hour thing. And I think honestly, if this is just my opinion, if he had taken it going, okay, what can audiences digest, and split BVS up into 2 films, made the first one about Batman specifically, about his thing and what he's dealing with, and maybe have Clark Kent and little snippets of it, and then bring them both together in the second
Wonder
film,
Woman, yeah.
and then or even split that up into 3 movies. You could have made 2 hour movies, short films that would have made, and they would have tracked it. Anyway, that's just if Zack had realized, okay, if I take these giant ideas and scrunch them and squeeze them out into little pieces that everybody can digest into 2 hour and 20-minute things that I can digest, he'll be able to tell his giant story, and they'll make money and all. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. I really think.
But wasn't that sort of the original concept when it was announced that it would be a 2-part film? Was that basically what you're talking about is what they had originally done? But I think with again, and I hate to keep bringing up Marvel in this because it's a DC discussion, but it's very much like the comic publishers themselves. DC does one thing, they create Justice League superhero team that's outselling all other comic books. Marvel does the same thing. They borrow from one another. And I think what it came down to is they went, no, we need to just get one commercial film out to set up the Justice League movie. In essence, Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice really is a first Justice League movie. It's really the 2 in two parts, but it's not how they originally intended it to go.
Right. No, I'm just saying, like, just if you think about it in the sense of like how well known Batman is, if you had made a solo Batman film with Ben Affleck,
Yeah.
and made and built that whole relationship between the two, and as we've all discussed before, the BVS situation was rather confusing because the snipped cut version that we got in the theater confused a lot of people because it did have these things or whatever. But we don't need to get into that. The point is that, and this is just once again just my opinion, if Zack, and I love Zack to death, but if he had taken it in smaller increments and kind of given smaller pieces to what he could have built it up and made it this big thing, and he still would have been able to execute this giant vision that he had.
It may have worked better with the audiences, but the only thing where I could see that could have been a problem with just a standalone Batman film prior to BVS and Justice League is that there was so much audience resistance and fan resistance to Ben Affleck. It's like, and again, going back to Marvel, it's like, I think everybody just throws the entire brunt of the failure of the Daredevil movie solely on him. And quite frankly, I don't think he did a bad job in that film. I think it was miscasting of Elektra, miscasting of Bullseye, and just a really weak script with a lot of editing before it was released, because the director's cut is a lot better. And so, but there's a lot of preconceived notions about Ben Affleck, and he's a terrible actor, or he couldn't possibly be Batman. And quite frankly, I'm pleased with Ben. I mean, at first when I heard it, I thought, well,
I think everybody's on board.
Okay, that's interesting. It wouldn't have been my first choice right off the bat, but I think he's proved himself. I think he's a good older Batman. I'm glad that they didn't decide to just totally reboot it and have the origin again and the whole. We saw that with Batman Begins. You're not going to get any more detailed than that. The costume looks amazing. I think it is the finest Batman costume that they've had on screen.
Perfect.
It looks like Frank Miller's Dark Knight costume, and I don't care that the ears are small. That's how Frank Miller drew it, and I think that's, with Batman, it doesn't really matter the ears. It's not about the ears, folks. Like, there's a lot of nitpicking too. Like, I understand the nipples on the Batsuit in the Joel Schumacher movies. That's a little too much. It doesn't need to be anatomically correct, but nitpicking like the size of the ears, that's just silly, because the costume, it moves well, it's believable, he looks good, he doesn't have to talk like, I'm not wearing hockey pads, like, the vocoder, the whole like, do you bleed? You will. I mean, I love it.
And now you have to forgive me. So I love Batman, and I've read many Batman comics, but I've not read all of them. Are there certain comics where he's using a vocoder? Or was he? I don't know.
It's kind of like with the eyes. Okay. The eyes in the comic, you never see them.
It's like you're not gonna know.
So no, he's never really used the vocoder. He's definitely changed his voice, but I mean, it's easier to imagine in a comic book scenario somebody, just putting on a pair of glasses and suddenly nobody can recognize them. But in a film, it's a little bit different, and I think Michael Keaton had a good approach with the whole like, I'm Batman, just kind of lowering his octave. Christian Bale had to do like the kind of talk screaming. I think they found the right balance with Ben Affleck in the voice vocoder thing.
Apparently, this is a story that I read online. Apparently, Christian Bale and Ben Affleck ran into each other at the costume shop, and they were getting their kids like some costumes.
Really?
And so they were talking about Batman while getting Batman costumes for their kids. I don't know if that's real, but I did read that.
I want it to be real.
And so they were like he was giving Ben Affleck tips on, okay, I'll talk like this,
I would love it if that was a real story. Just to hear Christian Bale go, well, Batman should talk like this, and Ben Affleck's going, yeah, that's not going to happen. Because I mean, it worked for the Chris Nolan movies, but it's still not my favorite. But going back to Justice League, it's kind of an interesting thing that a $300 million movie could switch directors.
That is such a crazy thing. It really is such a crazy thing, and it does make me think for a second. Okay, so how much actual profit did they make?
Yeah, I mean, I think with international sales, they eventually broke even, and I'm sure they're going to make a ton of money with the the digital release, advanced digital release, which digital releases traditionally would come out like a couple of weeks before the actual physical release, but I mean, Justice League is out like a month before the physical release. And then everybody's excited about the deleted scenes, which you have to wait for the Blu-ray to actually see, or the 4K, whatever your poison.
And speaking of which, on this new release, that's another thing that's like, I mean, I get it. There, there is no Zack Snyder cut, and of course, everybody, that's the hashtag right now. Like, release the Zack Snyder cut.
But did he make enough footage to make a Zack Snyder
I really
cut?
think they did, but that's just my speculation. I don't know. Of course not. I don't think anybody knows. If you do know, please tell us.
Let us know.
If honestly, and forgive us for not. I mean, we did scour a little bit and kind of search around to see. Please let us know if there is. If there has been footage made, great. I mean, I know that there was a ton of ideas. I mean, there was supposed to be a Green Lantern, a core, an actual Green Lantern.
Kilowog and Tamaray were going to be in there.
That was going to be like a full sequence of Green Lantern. So
well, anyway. Darkseid was expected to have like a cameo as well. So there have been major changes. I'm just going to say right off the bat that I'm going to give it my rating right now, just so that we can move past that. I think it's a 3 out of 4 star film. It has its flaws, and it could have been a 4-star film, but I think, the Avengers movie got it right, the first film to have multiple superheroes. But I think it's a little bit trickier when you're trying to put Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman into a movie. You're just not going to please everybody because Marvel heroes like Spider-Man and Captain America and Wolverine and Iron Man, they're huge. They're really huge. But Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are like the iconic holy trilogy. They have a lot more weight to carry because Captain America had his run in the 40s, and after the war, he was retired from the comics. They didn't bring him back until the 60s with the Avengers, where Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman continued. Superman's been around since 38, Batman since 39, and Wonder Woman since 42, and they've never stopped publication. And they are 3 of the most iconic modern mythological heroes in the world, like globally. Yes, people around the world know Spider-Man. Yes, people around the world know the Flash, but nobody knows, everybody knows Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And to try and do a film with the 3, let alone adding other heroes to it, and people that, characters that people don't have much faith in, like Aquaman's always the butt of jokes, but to be able to do it and to do it well, that's all I could ever ask for. It's not a perfect film, but there is so much to admire in this epic team film.
And that brings me to 2 points that I want to make. So then why the heck don't we have, we have Wonder Woman film and a fast-tracked second Wonder Woman film, which is fantastic, which is wonderful, and I can't wait for Wonder Woman 2.
Me too.
I'm really excited for that, of course. But why we don't have a Man of Steel 2 fast-tracked or a Batman, of course I know that they're working on it, but it's like that's your flagship. Those are your 3 top-tier Justice League members, and it's like if we got to have the anyway. It's like that's what they should be doing. Honestly, it's just my opinion. That's what they should be doing. Those are the things that they should be doing. But go ahead.
I agree. I agree that they should all be in the works, but I think what they're really trying to do. They are going to be doing the Batman.
Yeah.
They are going to be doing another Suicide Squad. They will. The Cyborg movie is going to happen. I think what they want to do, and the Aquaman movie obviously is coming out this year. I think it would be important to have a second Man of Steel post Justice League, post Batman versus Superman. Of course, the Batman movie. I think what they're trying to do is flesh out the universe more by just instead of just focusing on those main characters, which is fine. I do have to say this, and I like Ezra Miller as the Flash. He's just fine. But I really wish that they had approached it the way the Marvel had with their television shows by making it a unified. And I understand DC's all about the multiverse and that these are all taking place in different universes, and that's fine. But I really do, as a fan, watching Marvel shows, even if none of the characters from Inhumans or Runaways interact with any of the characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Daredevil, just knowing that they're all set in the same universe as each other and the same universe as their films, it just brings it's just a bigger mythology, a bigger world building. It's exciting because they can make references that are just a single line, but you don't have to cross-pollinate so much with the actors and everything, but just knowing that it exists in the same universe, because I've invested so much time into the DC CW shows, and I even want Gotham to be like the prequel to Ben Affleck's Batman. I want Krypton to be tied to Henry Cavill's Man of Steel.
We've been spoiled. Well, it's because we've been spoiled with that, having the Marvel interconnected.
The interconnectedness.
Intertwined universe, whatever. Sorry, the having that all completely connected. We've been spoiled with that. It's like that has never happened before, and I know it's like I know that all of us are like, damn, I really want these to be all connected, and I do too. I'm right there with you, but it's like this is the first time it's actually happened, and so it's like all the people at Warner Brothers are like, I guess we could do it, but I guess we could throw this. This will work. I guess this will work. I guess this will work. And it's like this whole the TV thing has really blown up and had a complete intertwined universe as well. But man, it's just it's unfortunate because we all want it. It's like once you have it, you can't go back. It's like we've seen that. Yeah. We've seen the Avengers. We've seen it all together. We've seen it all
the Defenders
completely in this complete total universe, and you see, oh, this happened here, so therefore blah blah blah, and you can see all the connections, and it's like it's rewarding. It's like a rewarding experience.
Absolutely.
And so to have that actually happen in DC would be unbelievable. But honestly, I don't just going forward with all of the announcements of everything that's been happening, I honestly don't think that they're going to do it. Especially at all, which is fine, but it's frustrating.
Well, but the thing is, it's not that Marvel is like better. I mean, I guess whatever your bias is. I mean, I am a bigger fan of DC characters. I mean, Marvel's here, but DC's just barely. But it's just the fact that what Marvel's done feels like the comic books I'd read, where I pick up an issue of Ghost Rider and, oh, look, there's Spider-Man. Or I pick up an issue of Luke Cage and there's Iron Fist, and yes, I know they were the heroes for hire, but when they're not working together, or like you get an X-Men story that has Captain America in it. I love that. Like, I would have loved had they not put the Flash in the Justice League movie, but put like Green Lantern, a different Green Lantern, not Ryan Reynolds, and then that way they could eventually have Grant. How do you pronounce his last name? Gustin? Grant Gustin. Yeah, brain fart. I would love to see him on the big screen because I've invested 4 seasons into this character, and he's just, he just plays it so well. But I digress. This is the state of things. DC is keeping their shows separate with a loose continuity between the CW shows. I mean, Supergirl is in the multiverse, but yet she can cross over into the Legends and Arrow and the Flash, and that's fine. I mean, that is a DC trope, but going back to Justice League itself, like it just honestly would have felt so much bigger to me if I knew that it incorporated those TV shows into that continuity. But you can't change it, folks. It's done.
And just to end this, because we need to get to the review of the film. So forgive us for taking a minute, but honestly, just to reiterate, I am super psyched for Shazam. I am super psyched. I love DC as well, and I actually love them almost equally. But same with me. I'm DC just a tiny bit, but. Honestly, I am psyched for everything that's coming up. Really, really excited for Aquaman, but I cannot wait to see what James Wan has done with this, and Jason Momoa and everything. I mean, Jason Momoa saying underwater Star Wars. I mean, that's what those were his words. And just seeing him zip around like Superman underwater in this Justice League movie was unbelievable. Really psyched for that. Can't wait for that. And that's actually one of the things. Just really quickly. Makes me so glad that Han Solo didn't get pushed back, because I was literally like, stay out of Aquaman's way, because Aquaman is scheduled for release in December. I want Aquaman to kill December. I want Aquaman to just destroy December, because honestly, if it doesn't, they're going to be like, should we make an Aquaman too? That's honestly what they're going to do.
DC needs this. I agree with you. I'm looking forward to Aquaman being a sort of Arthurian legend underwater, because that's how I always pictured it, like in the early 2000s with CG technology becoming so viable and so realistic. Not that it always looks real. I mean, you can always tell it's an effect, but I thought, the way to do an Aquaman movie is to set it underwater and have, more underwater than on land, and have more of Atlantis, and to be able to basically take like an Arthurian legend, a huge epic, and put it underwater in a way you've never seen it before, which it's going to predate James Cameron's Avatar 2, which is supposed to be underwater too. So I hope they just kill it. But
I really do.
Interesting side note about Shazam. Even though it's a DC film, it's actually not being released by Warner Brothers. It's being released by New Line Cinema, which is a subsidiary company of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers acquired New Line Cinema in the early '90s. So ironically, the Blade trilogy, Blade is really the film that kicked Marvel Studios into high gear, showing that you could sell a comic book based superhero film without using one of the bigger characters. They're from New Line, so ironically, Warner Brothers, they're Marvel's rival, Marvel and DC's rival. Warner Brothers and DC, they have the Blade films, but it's kind of interesting that they chose to release Shazam through New Line instead of directly through Warner Brothers. I'm not sure what the reason is there, but
bizarre.
I'm still looking forward to that big time.
I'm a big fan of Zach Levi. I loved the show Chuck. If you haven't seen Chuck, it is actually so much fun.
Chuck is fun. Yeah.
I loved it. Anyway, but just that said, on top of everything else, Justice League, they should be fast tracking it. We're gonna get into the review right now, but they should be fast tracking Justice League 2. They should be. Everybody's hyped for it. They're all. It's like they've got a momentum going.
I don't know.
This is
after the financial earnings and the critical reviews, they're stepping back.
And that's the problem. And that's the problem is that personally, I think that because of their mandatory 2-hour thing, as a result, this is just my personal opinion, my speculation, is that because of that mandatory 2-hour thing, people felt what's the word? Short-handed or whatever you want to call it, and as a result, we just the fans weren't weren't blown away, and so as a result, it didn't do as well. I don't know. I really don't know if that's the case here, but honestly, I think that they could have fast-tracked a volume 2, but whatever.
No, I agree. I mean, I think as much as I enjoyed the Justice League movie, and I do feel like they really rushed through it. I mean, in 2 hours, they cover a lot of ground, and there's a lot crammed in for 2 hours.
20 minutes more would have...
20 minutes more would have fleshed out a little bit more, because it does move at such a breakneck speed. Where the polar opposite, which I think was the point, is to make it the polar opposite of BVS, which a lot of people thought was slow and deliberate. And I thought it was good because it was... And it may have taken itself a little too seriously, but I think that was the point. Is I don't think it took itself any more seriously than any of the X-Men movies. With the whole humans against mutants. It's the same thing with Superman. Like, how would you treat an omnipotent godlike hero? I mean, is he saving people? But he could turn on us at any time. And so those issues in the modern post 9/11 world of cinematic comic books, you have to address those issues. You can't no longer just say, oh, there's Batman, he's going to save the day. You got to go, why is that guy wearing a suit and why isn't he locked up? You know what I mean? You kind of have to add a little bit of realism to him. But I do think that the movie did feel a little rushed. I could have gone another 20, 30 minutes. I would have loved a 3-hour director's cut because they're such rich characters, there's such a rich mythology. They went ahead and introduced Jack Kirby's Fourth World, which, Darkseid was never the main antagonist of Superman, which is usually Lex Luthor, but over the years he's become one of the main antagonists thanks to Jack Kirby's Fourth World run on the DC Comics. And having Steppenwolf was nice because it was like, okay, and Parademons, eventually we're going to get, in the Mother Box, oh man, eventually we're going to get into, if they kept going that way, we'd get into Darkseid. Hopefully we'd get into Apocalypse and the New Gods, and I think we're a long ways off from ever seeing a Mr. Miracle film or Forever People or, Black Racer and all that. But still, just knowing that they hinted at it was enough to satisfy this long time like DC fan.
Okay, so anyway, we're gonna get into this. Yeah, we're all big DC fans here, so hopefully you are too, if you're watching this.
Hope so. Real quick, spoilers again. Just another reminder, spoilers, and take it away.
So this intro... So this, we just discussed about this just beginning. So since this is the DVD version, we're looking at this, or this is our iTunes version. The Justice League, you get to see the entire scope of all these amazing characters, unbelievable. And it was really sad to me because I was like, wow, okay, so they're opening this all up, and then of course we're not going to get a Justice League 2, which is like, or at least we don't see anyone, anything that, which is fine, I guess. But it's like after you tease us with this, you're. And I think you said that this new logo was introduced with Wonder Woman, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, Wonder Woman was the first movie to have this new logo. And it almost looks like an Alex Ross painting, which very well could be. But what I would love to see is every one of those characters you're seeing behind me. Every single one of these characters I want to see fleshed out in film and television.
Yeah, man.
I mean, look, Black Lightning over there. If you haven't started watching that CW show, it is actually really impressive.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a different show for DC. It's a different show for the CW. They're taking a different approach. And look at how much that costume looked like it. I mean, it's just amazing. Like, I mean, Captain Marvel, you got the Spectre. I mean, there's so many of these amazing characters that I want to see brought to life. Seeing this opening scene, and I've noticed that Marvel, too, both of their cinematic universes have really opened up their opening montage. It's like longer than most studio it's longer than the Universal logo. It's longer than the Warner Brothers logo. It's longer than Paramount and Lucasfilm and New Line Cinema, but I don't care because when you see that, it gets you really pumped. You're like, yeah, we're getting into this, man. They're bringing it to life. I do like how on Marvel's end, they scale it back for their TV shows, and it's just kind of like the older intro with just the comic book images. I wish DC's television shows, whether it's on Fox, whether it's on CW, whether it's on Sci-Fi, I wish that they would have like a shorter version of this instead of just having the DC logo just at the end of the show, you know. But I digress. When you see this right before you're watching Wonder Woman or Justice League, if you are a lifelong DC fan like me and you still have the superpowers figures, which I do, they're out of the package. Don't hold it against me. I was a child. But they're in good condition. But seeing something like this gets me pumped. It gets me excited, and it brings out the child in me.
Yeah, totally. And once again, it's just a tease. It's just a tease for me personally because I want to see them in films. I want to see all of them in films fighting. And a big fan of all the games that they've had to Injustice 1 and 2, and those are great to tell the stories. Etc.
Shazam! I'm sorry.
It's
so cool.
And that makes me so psyched for Shazam for sure. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna get into this film.
Oh man, I gotta tell you though, I gotta say, I love this poster art. It may look a little Bohemian Rhapsody, but it doesn't matter because it also looks like an Alex Ross cover. If you're not familiar with Alex Ross, you really should be. I love how it's not a painting. It's actually
but it looks
them, but it looks like the cover of a graphic novel, and I just think that approach, man. I think what was I reading about on Wikipedia?
Or a Queen album
that it like won an award for best poster art for an action film. Like that's fantastic.
it's really great. I didn't know that. I was unaware that it won an award for that. That's really amazing. So. But anyway, here we're gonna get into it. Is that okay if we is that all right if we just get into this?
Let's get into this.
So of course everybody has bad things to say about the scene. I thought it was great. Of course everybody had issues with his mustache. They could see it right away. It's fine, whatever.
How can you see it?
I mean, people were saying that they had issues with it.
Yeah, I think those people are seeing what they want.
It was still really great. He's got his he's back to being majestic or whatever and doing his Superman thing. Really really great to see that. This was really cool, specifically here because I remember the scope of it of this dropping down and having both. This is really unique to me.
Yeah.
Having both a Zack Snyder feeling and a Joss Whedon feeling at the same time. The reason why, actually,
I had a bit of a Tim Burton feeling.
Actually. Thank you. That's what I meant to say is that it had the Batman '89 feel to it, of course, with the rooftop business. But it still felt very Zack Snyder-ish to me in this sense. But great moments with Batman here.
But I'm also going to say that not just when I saw the Tim Burton film, so I was 13, like literally midnight showing. Mm-hmm. It came out on the 23rd of June, 1989, but there was a midnight showing long before, like a recent movie like Black Panther was supposed to open on Friday, but then they show it on Thursday, not just at midnight, but earlier in the evening. This was long before
they did that. This was midnight on Thursday or midnight on Friday?
Well, Black Panther's...
No, I'm talking about your experience.
So Batman originally was coming out, I can't remember, I'm sure it was Friday the 23rd, but my birthday was on the 22nd, but there was a midnight showing. Again, something they didn't do back in the day for most movies, but there was so much hype around that. But I remember being 13 years old, already a lifelong Batman fan, and seeing that first scene with Batman on the roof and the whole, "What are you?" I'm Batman, that whole iconic thing. It actually... When I saw this, it did remind me of that, but when seeing the Tim Burton film and seeing him on the roof, I just thought, that's Batman. I have so many covers, or so many issues with covers with Batman on prowling rooftops and things that it just seems like to do a Batman movie where he's not prowling on rooftops like Joel Schumacher's unmentionable films, that's just not Batman. That would be the same as like when he's not detecting stuff, and that's another thing that I like about what they've done with Ben Affleck is he is the detective. they still play up that aspect. He's a frightening character to villains, which they still play up that aspect, especially on like the scene on the rooftop or Batman versus Superman in the warehouse where he's taking on all those guys. I really think that this is like a prime moment for Batman in cinema, like really bringing the character to life.
It was really great. I love this. I love everything that they did here, but like I said, once again, all very realistic, and it does look like a Tim Burton movie at these points.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. It looks that's because then if you do watch the 80 Batman again, I mean, you can tell all of that is just backdrop. It's just a backdrop scenery, which is great. It has some what's the word I was trying to think of? Anyway,
it's theatrical and it's surreal.
It has, I don't know what else to say. But anyway, this backflip is badass here, and he's shooting the water tower. This was a really cool one that I saw. He's got a cool screen on his wrist.
I want one of those.
It's pretty cool. So
especially if I can see inside buildings, like that would help so much for shopping, don't you think? Like around the holidays, you're like, yeah, I'm not going into Toys R Us right now. That's just too damn crowded. Like that'd be cool.
This is great, yeah. This is great. This is actually reminiscent of the New 52. Just when he's being chased by the new. I mean, I've read those books so many times. Just the Justice League New 52. When
of course now they're no longer canon since DC's rebooted themselves again.
Yeah. So anyway, but this is great. This reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Did you like the
Not so much because I'll be honest. I mean, as a comic book reader, it's gotten to a point where the big two, Marvel and DC, I think spend so much time. And there's a reason for this, but I think they spend so much time looking at these big crossover events where there's the 52, but then there's all the other heroes have their place, and it's hard to keep up with it all. So I've kind of actually stepped back from buying Marvel and DC comics, with the exception of the Wonder Woman 77 stuff based on the Linda Carter television series, and the Batman 66 stuff, which is a lot of fun because they cross over with Man from U.N.C.L.E., the Van Williams, Bruce Lee Green Hornet, the Legion of Superheroes. It's a lot of fun. But I haven't really kept up with, as far as collecting the issues. I'll read about the giant storylines just so I have an understanding of where these universes are at the time, but I think a lot of it's like a constant sweeps week, and it's because the comics industry, they're everywhere, the properties, but the comics themselves are still not selling that well. Not nearly as well as they did in '92, not nearly as well as they did in the 1950s, or I mean not the 1950s, but the 1940s or the 1960s, and it's because you got competition from video games and from YouTube. I mean, there's just so many Netflix. There's so many things that people can distract themselves with. That reading comic books, even digitally, it's still on the decline. So
keep reading. That's what we're trying to say. So keep reading these comics so that people can keep creating. And I realize that, of course, things get rebooted, etc. But keep reading this stuff, and we're gonna.
Well, if more people would read the comics and the comic book sales were starting to get excessive like they used to, then we wouldn't have all these crossover events that are trying to draw new audiences. Like when both Marvel and DC decided to do zombie storylines, I had to kind of step away. I mean, Marvel's was more humorous, DC was more dark, but I thought, really, zombies and superheroes?
Anyway, so moving on. So this is a really cool shot of, once again, of Gotham City. I think we're in Gotham. We might be in Gotham or Metropolis, since they're neighboring cities in this.
No, that's
universe.
definitely Gotham, because Metropolis is always going to be brighter.
McGotham?
It's McGotham. No, it's actually Chicago, but really it's Gotham.
Is that where the scene was filmed?
All Gotham scenes are usually filmed in Chicago, just like with the Chris Nolan movies.
Right,
but the thing is, Superman, I mean, Metropolis you rarely see at night, and when you do, it's like Superman's just flying over, kind of patrolling the city. But like Gotham, I mean, you never see any Batman stories where he's out in the day.
There's more smoke.
Yeah.
There's more smoke, and it seems to be there's a lot more steam, machinery that's generating steam in Gotham.
It's the difference between Star City and Arrow and Central City and the Flash. Crime exists, but one's brighter and cleaner than the other.
Okay, so moving on. So I actually love the design of the Parademons. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but I love the design of them. I think they're really cool.
Well, I like them. I think for the film they work.
Yeah.
Same thing with Steppenwolf, but I'll admit, being a Jack Kirby fan,
we'll get to Steppenwolf. We'll get to Steppenwolf in a minute.
But just about the Parademons and their whole design. Jack Kirby created those characters as well as Steppenwolf, and I just wish that I wish that they looked just a little bit more like his amazing drawings, because
sorry, we don't have
whenever they do in animated format, in Superman animated series from the 90s or Justice League Unlimited, they always go out of their way to make sure that they have a Kirby-esque look to them, just as a wink and an acknowledgement. But that's because he's the man who created these characters,
right,
drew them out of his brain.
Yeah.
And they were good looking for the film. I knew exactly what they were as soon as I saw them. Even in BVS, I was like, parademons. But I do kind of wish they looked a little bit more like a comic, but that's, I understand these things have to get retooled for the big screen.
I was just curious what your thoughts were on that. So these are really cool. Once again, this just all brings me back to the New 52. If you haven't read the New 52, you should. It's really, really a great story.
There's a lot of issues to read.
Sorry, I got a lot of screenshots of this. I just love this scene so much.
That's a good shot.
So one of the cool and most interesting parts that I forgot, this came up and I didn't realize it until this happened, until I saw this just recently, the third time or whatever, is that when he has a net gun.
Who, Batman?
We all would love that. Yeah. Batman has a net gun. And he shoots the net gun, and of course for some reason it disintegrates him. I don't know why that is, but an imprint of the glowing 3 mother boxes ends up showing there on the.
Well,
so why
did
is
it
that
disintegrate
in a
him, or
nutshell?
did he use a boom tube to travel back to Apocalypse?
Well, it looks like it's disintegrated. What do you think?
It's hard to say, because I mean, I don't know why they would have disintegrated.
Okay.
I wonder if the parademon just teleported itself with the boom tube back to Apocalypse.
Well, let me.
But
allow me to show you. So this is it, and then boom, and then it just shows.
Yeah.
This is so. Anyway, this was a kind of an interesting. I had forgotten about this kind of bizarre thing. Anyway, interesting thing that it would show an imprint of what he wants. It's just kind of bizarre. This was cool though, leaving a clue for the detective.
And I guess, and I love the detective aspect. I mean, he's the Dark Knight detective. He's the world's greatest detective, maybe next to Sherlock Holmes, which Batman has admitted himself. If you're a Batman Brave and the Bold fan, you know what I'm talking about. But I think, again, going back to the parademons and the whole Jack Kirby look, so much of this film is based around Jack Kirby concepts. The mother boxes, that's a Jack Kirby fourth world concept. Steppenwolf, parademons, turning Earth into Apocalypse. I just kind of wish that they just put a little bit more of his design into it, just to honor the greatness that is Jack King Kirby.
Okay, so we move on to
Lois Lane.
Lois, and I mean, a lot of people have issues with her as Lois, and I love her. I think she's fantastic as Lois.
I'll tell you this much. I love Amy Adams. I will say that compared to Margot Kidder, even Terry Hatcher, and Kate Bosworth, she's a little less feisty. Lois Lane's always been like the intrepid reporter, a little bit like harder edge, doesn't take any guff from anybody, real fast talker. And I think Amy Adams, she's gorgeous, but she brings like a little bit more of a softer side to Lois Lane that I haven't seen before. So it's kind of an interesting portrayal.
And then there are the funny moments where, what are we gonna do? Just measure.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're done measuring. Anyway, that moment in Man of Steel, not my favorite, but just funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, showing her have the sorrow and everything, this was really, really touching. Of course, as we discussed before, I love Diane Lane in this, just so amazing. So
but let's talk a quick second about the opening montage. So like, there was a hefty weight feeling the repercussions of Superman dying, right? I mean, we know as fans, you can't kill Superman. You can't keep a good Superman down. He died in the comics. He came back. Died in the movie. Spoiler, he comes back. I'm sure you figured that out by now. But just the fact that there was 2 elements at play during the opening sequence. One, Zack Snyder kind of retreaded his opening sequence from Watchmen, which is an amazing opening sequence. Yeah. A lot of slow motion, telling a story without dialogue through the use of music. Just brilliantly captured the Watchmen for me. He did the same thing in Justice League, and I was really incredibly impressed with that. While it also showed the repercussions of what everybody's going through with Superman dying, and people realizing that, this man is not an enemy, he's a hero. However, I will say, as great as the opening sequence was, His choice of music with The Watchmen was much better.
Much better.
Bob Dylan is
Bob
more
Dylan is-
classic. I don't
yeah.
know what was going on with the song that he chose for this.
He should have just done the original Leonard Cohen version. The original, like everybody knows who the bug.
I'm sorry, how does that go again?
And I don't know the words. I'm sorry. It's actually it's a wonderful song.
It is.
It's a beautifully written song. The lyrics are amazing. Of course, Leonard Cohen is amazing.
Joseph.
But anyway.
By the way, I gotta tell you, man, his middle name. Just saying.
Not bad.
For all the Joes and Josephs out there, you know what I'm talking about. Vindicated.
And so, of course, this was all released. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, that's heartbreaking, man. Nobody wants to see the
Bank
farm
owned.
sold. Yeah.
Bank owned.
Nobody wants to see that. I mean, Diane Lane is a great Martha Kit, and you don't want to see her out on her ass. Like, it was not cool.
Yeah, it was very sad to see that happen. Anyway, so we're moving on. This is part of the slow motion montage. Once again, no dialogue, telling the story with the newspaper showing.
Yeah.
There's a moment where I didn't grab it just because I'm trying to conserve on, but there's a moment where it's talking about. It just shows like Prince, Elvis, Superman.
Yeah.
Have they all returned to their old planet or whatever?
Yeah.
And funny moment.
Timely and funny. And sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's little details like that that really fleshes out this world because it makes it more believable. You know what I mean? And that's the thing with Zack Snyder is he's got a pretty bold vision. I mean, say what you will about the man. Whether you thought Watchmen was too faithful enough, the man has balls. I mean, he really does to pull off something as big as this and not follow somebody else's format. He didn't say, we're going to do this the Marvel way. That's the template. He said, we're going to do this the way I think it should be done. I think it's pretty bold.
Yeah. So anyway, once again, this is and that's what I was going to mention is that this specific whole montage intro is reminiscent of The Watchmen, which is another one of my favorite DC films. And here we are at Wonder Woman. I would have got a few more Wonder Woman screenshots, but this is, of course, her jumping around and doing awesome stuff. Doing awesome stuff. It's so great to see Wonder Woman portrayed in such a perfect way. I honestly think it's the way everything has been done has like literally been just perfect. Even with her first introduction in BVS, she stole the show in that movie, and she's just been great throughout.
Yeah, I can't say enough. I have been in love with Wonder Woman since I was a child. I think I knew her from the Super Friends and the Linda Carter series before I ever read the comic books. But I got to tell you, why had it taken 75 years for her to get her own film?
Yeah,
this should be like the third version of a Wonder Woman film, or the fifth by now. Really she should have already had a trilogy. She's part of the Holy Trinity. She's an amazing hero, and they couldn't have picked a better actress. I'll be honest with you. I was skeptical, not because of the reasons why other people, she's not busty enough, or she's not American, or she doesn't wear red, white, and blue. Nah, that's all stupid. She's not American. Who cares what the size of her chest is? That has nothing to do with her abilities. I'll be honest. The only reason why I hesitated is because having prior to Batman vs Superman, and again prior to the Wonder Woman film last year, rewatching all 3 seasons of the 1970s Linda Carter Wonder Woman series, it's almost kind of like, no wonder there hasn't been a movie, because I don't think anybody existed who could have embodied the character more than Linda Carter. She was perfect, and yet they found somebody.
So great.
So that scene in particular is just awesome.
And we'll probably do maybe a Wonder Woman.
The audience applauded.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
So awesome.
And this is very Chris Nolan-esque to me.
Yeah.
This was like a nod to with Bruce Wayne trying to find Aquaman. It was kind of like a nod to Batman Begins.
Yeah, I now that you mention that, it's great. And I can't help but like thinking, because I've seen films made, I've been on sets with films being made, etc. And it's like, that he's just having him go over this bridge just to get the shot of him looking down, and it's almost silly when you think about it as a filmmaker, but it's like you got to get that shot.
Well, and do you even see his face? It's probably not even actually Ben Affleck. He's probably in a hotel in California somewhere while they're second unit crews doing this.
Anyway, so moving on, and this was funny moments where, of course, Aquaman says something like, what does he say?
You just recently rewatched it. I haven't seen it since the theater. So
I'm going back to here. Great to see Wonder Woman in full force. Anyway, he said something about like the lone hero, and this is that. You're stronger being alone, and Ben Affleck says that's the opposite of what that saying is.
Yeah.
And it's not the real saying. And it was an interesting moment where he's like, "What if the Aquaman says I don't care if the oceans rise," and then Bruce says, "What if they boil?"
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, because why would he care? He's an aquatic guy, but if they boil, then no one can live. What I like about what they've done with Aquaman here, because Aquaman, outside of the comic community that reads Aquaman, he's been the butt of jokes. Going back to the 70s on Saturday Night Live, the sketch, they're making fun of Aquaman. It's all go talk to the fishies and Robot Chicken and all that. But for those of us who read the comic book in the 90s, through the years, we know what a badass he is. And this seems like a nice amalgamation of elements from the comic book where he, lost his hand, he became more rugged, he grew the long hair and the beard, but also mixed with a sort of jovial, I want to fight, ass-whooping attitude that he had in the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series when he was voiced by John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender from Futurama. It was a perfect balance where you actually believed, okay, this man who seemingly just talks to fish can do so much more,
All right, so we're going to move on here. This is great. And once again reiterating our
that guy's
cool
huge.
Aquaman sequence of it, and then he darts off underwater super fast, just like
a nice
really
little nod to the original costume by having it tattoos with the ridges instead of actually having to wear the yellowish goldish outfit.
Apparently they brought that back. Apparently,
really
for the film.
Oh, I'm stoked.
That's
gonna be cool.
So he's gonna have his orange get up and everything apparently.
Nice.
Which is interesting. So these are not Jason Momoa's tattoos then.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't know.
I think he does have tattoos.
Did he get?
No, he has tattoos, but that's definitely not it.
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
Because just to do that for this
movie,
that's commitment, man.
That's hardcore. I knew he was hardcore.
Dude, that dude's hardcore.
But that hardcore, that's pretty hardcore. Okay, so Alfred, the best Alfred ever, Jeremy Irons? No, I don't say. I mean, your favorite was?
Well, I like Jeremy Irons. I like Michael Caine. I like Michael Goff from the Tim Burton movies. But I think the guy who's nailed it and is now probably closer to how he is in the comic books now, since the current reboots of DC, is Sean Pertwee on Gotham. By far the best Alfred I've seen. He's capable. He's middle-aged, but he's still young enough that I just don't see Jeremy Irons. No offense to Jeremy Irons' amazing acting ability, but he doesn't do action movies. I mean, maybe a Die Hard movie, but he's not a fighter. So I don't see him kicking ass the way I see Sean Pertwee.
I actually do love the Alfred in the current Gotham series.
Sean Pertwee.
Yeah, he is great. Okay, so
that's not to say that his Alfred isn't good.
And honestly, I just honestly think that he was available. Yeah. And so they're like, let's get Jeremy Irons. He's great.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to work with Jeremy? Irons?
He's fantastic. So it's like he was available, and let's put him in. So he was.
Have you noticed this about Jeremy Irons' particular take on Alfred? Is a little bit more cynical, I think, than even Michael Caine's approach.
Yeah, a little darker.
He's a little darker. He's a little bit more bitter, and he does have some good one-liners. I will say that it's a bit underrated. But they didn't use him enough, but he's still kind of underrated.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So anyway. This is fun. This is the funny moment. This is our funny moment. And some people, I guess, beyond the trailer, girl said that there was had issues with Ezra Miller being a little bit too much comedy all the time. I thought he was great. I thought he was perfect. I thought every delivery of everything that he did in this film was perfect, in my personal opinion. Even this stupid drawing moment where he draws on the guy's face. I mean, I thought that was
that was fantastic.
I thought it was great. It was hilarious. It made people laugh, and it wasn't like none of it was forced. It's like there's a lot of time we feel like there's a point when humor can be forced. It wasn't ever forced. His delivery was like spot on everything.
Well, back in the day, Barry Allen used to be the serious Flash, just like Jay Garrick before him. But then when he died after the original Crisis, and Wally West took on the mantle, Wally West always had a bit more of a sense of humor.
That was his name, the Serious Flash.
Yeah.
And then the Reverse Flash, but the Serious Flash.
The Serious Flash. No, Barry Allen back in the day, prior to him dying in the original Crisis storyline back in the 80s, I mean, he was a more serious, square-jawed hero. And I think when Wally West, because I started reading the Flash comics well into Wally West's run, and I fell in love with how humorous he was. So when they did the 1990 Flash TV series, they would make Barry the main character, even though Wally was the main character in the comics at that time. I thought it makes sense because I love John Wesley's ship, but he's not known for his humor. And when they brought, after the zombie storyline, the Darkest Night or whatever, and they brought Barry back to life, he kind of retained a little bit of that Wally West quality, that sort of, good sense of humor, and that's translated into every iteration in film, television, and cartoons, and even video games since then. So to have him be the comic relief just makes sense to me, and like you were saying, his comic timing is good. It wasn't forced. I hate to say it, and I'm sure we're going to get a flood of hate mail for this, but sometimes I think Ryan Reynolds' delivery as Deadpool is a little forced. But I think Ezra Miller, very good.
He really is perfect, and just being a diehard fan of the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, the TV series that came out in 2000.
Justice League originally, Justice League ran in 2001 to 2003, and then Unlimited from 2003 to 2006. Brilliant.
I am a huge fan of those, and the Flash was always that guy. I mean, he was just the guy who was trying to always throwing in some crazy
one-liners.
Yeah.
And by the way, one day, let us know in the comments, Phil, if you would like to see us do a discussion about Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, because I would love to talk about it.
I would love to as well. As a matter of fact,
project. Oh man.
As a matter of fact, if you don't want it, too bad, because we're just kidding. No, seriously. If
you had your say, and we're gonna.
If you guys, no, seriously though, if you guys like JL as much as Joe and I do, seriously. So moving on, we're going to move on here. But honestly, his delivery is great here in this moment with the scene. So here we are, my favorite scene of the film. This is my my personal favorite scene of the film. This is just my personal.
You're talking about the flashback, right?
I'm talking about this is actually not the flashback. This is actually when the Themyscirians, the Amazons are.
Oh
Is it more appropriate to call them Themyscirians or
Themyscirians?
Themyscirians. They're trying to keep the boom tube, the mother box from getting into Steppenwolf's hands, and it's just like this amazing sequence. And I was going to get a million shots from it. And I didn't want to load this show up with images, but just a great moment, great scene. You get to see Steppenwolf. I personally really think that they upped his CGI in this since the film came out, and that's just my 2 cents on it. I'm not sure. I really don't know. Honestly, let us know what you guys think. I really think that it seems to me that they did, but it just could be because I'm looking at it on my screen and not the theater screen.
Yeah.
But they said nothing but bad things about his CGI. No, and to me, it seems like they did a kind of a correction job on this version, but I could be wrong.
Well, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but what I do know is that he actually, Ciarán Hinds, who plays Steppenwolf for the motion capture, did actually seek out Andy Serkis, who was playing Snoke at the time, for his motion capture. Yeah. And I really didn't think that it was. I mean, let's face it. It's all the uncanny valley because Gollum looks CG. I mean, it's kind of like when you see a movie and you go, oh, that's a modeling effect. It looks good, it's convincing, you go with it, like 2001. It's the same thing with digital effects. No matter how realistic it is, you're always going to notice it's a digital effect. My gosh, it looks like, go back and watch CGI motion capture films from the early 2000s and compare it to this, and I don't know what you can complain about. It's really not bad at all. Again, my only beef with Steppenwolf was I just wish he looked a little bit like Jack Kirby's creation, because this doesn't really look like it, but it wasn't bad.
I thought it was fine. I mean, some of his lines were a little kind of cheesy, but
sure,
it's fine. It's fine. It was still great to see him just being like badass stuff.
Well, like the difference between this and say like Jessica Jones or something is because I always say the hero is as good as his villain, but this wasn't necessarily about. This is why they chose Steppenwolf instead of Darkseid or Lex Luthor or the Joker, is because they just needed a villain to bring the characters together and to set the exposition up in motion. So they didn't need to get into a backstory. He didn't need to be totally fleshed out. He's a demigod from an alien planet who's coming to turn Earth into their planet. That's all you need to know about him.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, so anyway, moving on. Once again, this is the greatest scene, in my opinion, the greatest scene of the movie.
I don't know, man.
Seeing
an ancient Green Lantern Corps fight with
that was great too.
Yeah,
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that in a second. So here we go. Once again, this image is a little crazy. Sorry about it, but Steppenwolf is hammering his axe of whatever he's got is Zack. Do you know what the name of that thing is?
I can't.
It's fine. It's fine. We don't need to get to
There is a name for it, but I can't remember.
If you know the name for it, let us know.
Comment it, please.
Please, if anybody cares. All right, and then
And we know you do care.
And she's lassoing it and just trying to pull it away. It's a great moment. Anyway, just great scenes to this. Anyway, this is the flashback. This is what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
And so these are the minions of Steppenwolf, I guess. Darkseid.
But it's the way Jack Kirby spells it. So back in the day,
Everybody thinks it's Darkseid.
Back in the day, phonetically, it's Darkseid. I mean, E-I-D, but it's Darkseid. But it's, whatever. He's from Apocalypse. They don't English. They don't have to. Is it aluminum or is it aluminium or however? But it doesn't matter.
I do love the art direction here. I love it.
Yeah.
Ronnie was saying earlier that it's like the Allspark. I get that, but
more like the Allspark is ripping off the mother box.
That's really what's happening here because this was way before. Anyway, so here we go. Moving on. So this is a funny moment.
Alien stole my husband.
They use the bleeping because she just goes off. Anyway, that's just fun. It's a funny moment where they use beeping as a good comedic moment. Like you said specifically, they use that in Arrested Development a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes when you bleep things out, that's part of the joke.
Yeah.
Like in Arrested Development, only the pilot is actually uncensored. The rest of the time, they're making up a lot of swear words, or just making up words just to bleep.
Right.
Because it's funny that way. Yeah. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people gave this movie grief too because it had too much humor. It's like, what do you want? BVS and Man of Steel are too serious. This is too funny. It was just funny enough.
What can you do? So this is our flashback sequence. We finally get to see a Green
Lantern Corps
in this current universe, and it's
an ancient Corps too because none of the current Lanterns will be alive during then. So that's great.
It'd be great to find out actually how many years ago this is in the actual Universal in the canonic flow of things.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's centuries ago. Probably before Christ walked to the earth, before.
But this is great to see. I love to see this, and of course everybody talks about the alien getting knocked down and the getting killed, and of course the ring fighting. Wasn't it you that was saying it would be great to see? Or maybe it was someone else. It would be great. I think they were going to use this moment in the film to spin off the new Green Lantern Corps and show the journey of this ring.
I think that'd be an amazing idea because it eventually get into Avon Sher's hand, and then eventually from him it would go to Hal Jordan. And here's where a lot of people crapped on the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. It's really not that terrible. Parallax wasn't used to great effect, but they followed the central idea of even though it's Green Lantern, it's a Corps movie. It's the Green Lantern Corps, and that's what I want to see before Hal Jordan or even Kyle Rayner or Jon Stewart or Guy Gardner get their own films or TV shows, which I would love. I would love to see them take the Green Lantern franchise, mix it in with these films, but then give it its own universe. Because
they were supposed to.
I would love to see a mosaic film or series with the Jon Stewart Green Lantern. I love Kyle Rayner almost as much as Hal Jordan. I don't think they should ever just specifically focus on just one lantern. It's just too vast. And that's where I think the Green Lantern movie got it right, and I would love for them to use this particular moment as a launching point for a new Green Lantern franchise.
That's what's rumored, and I'm not sure if that's true, etc., whatever, if that's really going to happen. But, yes, like you said, that would be amazing. And honestly, I mean, so what has been discussed is that it's supposed to be a buddy cop movie, just kind of like the Green Lantern TV series that we only got one season of. That was unbelievable.
I got both seasons. There's two.
There is a second
season?
season?
There was 26 episodes.
Wait a second. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I could have sworn. Anyway, what an amazing season. If you haven't seen that, I was blown away. I was
just split into two 13-episode seasons.
Because I was just like, okay, I'll try it out, and it was on Netflix. This was right after it had came out.
Yeah, no longer on Netflix.
Right after this was right after it had come out, and it was out for like a few months or a few, and I don't know, it had been out for a while after it had closed that first season, and oh my gosh, such an incredible season. I was blown away, and I couldn't stop watching. And it's like animation, most animation, I can take it or leave it or whatever if I get into it, like Justice League, etc. Yeah. But I was blown away by that. Anyway, it made me so want to see more of the Green Lantern Corps. seeing Kilowog. Famous, the guy who did his voice, famous guy.
Kilowog is one of my favorites.
Do you remember his name? He's a famous guy. He's like, his voice has been in animation for centuries.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd have to take a look at it. It's probably Kevin Michael Richardson, but real quick, if you ever want to catch this short-lived Green Lantern series, again, it's no longer on Netflix. It may be on Hulu or Amazon. I'm not sure, but I do know that the Blu-rays and DVDs are the DVDs were available, but at retailers. They may be out of print now, but the Blu-rays were exclusive to Warner Brothers Archives, meaning they're made on demand or MODs. You order it, then they'll make it and send it to you. You can't just go into a Best Buy or an FYE and pick it up. Kevin Michael Richardson. You know him as the voice of the Joker on the Batman. He does tons of voices. Tom Kenny from SpongeBob was on there. Go back up because I think how many? So it says one season there.
So I could have been.
But it was split.
There really was a second season.
Well,
anyway,
in the Blu-ray set I've got, it's all 26 episodes. But I remember when it aired, it literally was 13 episodes, and then there was like a 9 or 10 month break, which is usually what you have for a season. Okay, and they did 13 more. So there should be 26 episodes
total.
We'll have to
look into that. But anyway,
they also did that with Beware the Batman from the same animation studio. It came out the year after Green Lantern was axed.
And that's another show. So we'll talk. So that's another show. So we'll talk about that later. But
we'll just do a DC cartoon thing sometime.
Honestly, dude, wow, what a great series, and I love the Lanterns. I think everybody loves the Lanterns. Apparently, I don't know if you saw these on Twitter.
I don't tweet. I'm sorry.
Henry Cavill. He was apparently he's a huge Green Lantern fan.
Really?
Like if you see him, he's just at the gym. He's got it's a tank top with it's all green and it's got a big OS sign on it, and it's just.
Well, dude, if he ever comes to Fanaddicts, man, I'll shake his hand wearing my Green Lantern.
He's a huge. It's just funny to see. It was the Superman's a giant Green Lantern fan. It's really cool to see. Anyway,
I do love that.
So this is of course our famous moment, and we saw a million times when we watched. All of us crazy diehard DC fans when we finally saw that there was Justice League movies.
The trailer, yeah.
That first trailer that came out, that was oh my gosh, it was great to see the Flash finally, and I was so psyched for this, and having him go nut and check out. Oh my gosh, you're the Batman, etc. It's such a great moment.
No, that is definitely one of my favorite moments in the film.
Oh yeah, so we're gonna go back to my notes here. So this was great. Okay.
And while we wait, you're gonna watch me take a sip of my tea real quick. Cleanse the palate, and we're back.
Speaking of which, I need to get a glass of water. So next time you have a second to talk, I'm gonna grab some water. Okay, so here we are, just back at some people had issues with interjecting the shoehorning in the Flash story. I was fine with it.
Well, it's setting up the Flashpoint paradox.
And see, that's the problem. That's the problem is that the Flashpoint movie. It's you think that they're going to set that up, but it's there's still no confirmation that's actually happening. So anyway, that's just a frustration.
Well, but if they ever get around to actually doing the Flash movie, I have a feeling that that's what his movie's going to be. But I honestly don't know if that's a good idea because the Flashpoint resets everything.
They need to. Yeah.
You don't unless the executives and the accountants and the bean counters are going. We need to reboot the series. Keep that in the back pocket. If you decide that this franchise isn't working out and you want to start it all over, then do your Flashpoint paradox.
But what a lot of people are saying is that because Ben Affleck's leaving, because of course he's just sick of being every time anybody sees him, he's being bombarded with questions about Batman. Yeah. When it's DC doesn't even know, Warner Brothers has no idea what the heck they're doing, so he doesn't know how to answer it, and it's so he's literally wedged in between. I can see him.
That can't be the only reason why he's leaving.
But that's just my opinion. Anyway, she's being wedged in between this catastrophe. He thought, oh great, Batman will be great, but it's he's seeing all this happen.
Well, do you also think that maybe one of the reasons why he's getting annoyed is because of people just want to hate Ben Affleck for some reason. It's everybody just turned again, and I don't know why. Have you all forgotten Chasing Amy and Dazed and Confused and Glory Days? He's done some really good films. Argo. I mean,
he's great. He's great. So anyway, we're gonna move on here. This is great. This is a great moment. What does he say? I love his lines. He says something about I'm a black hole of snacks. I'm a snack hole. I just laughed so hard. Not many people laughed in the theater about that joke, but I thought it was so funny.
Well, but you and I were the only ones in the theater who laughed during Hot Shots when he said, Lloyd Bridges said, "Wake me up at." They're on an aircraft carrier. It's military time. He goes, "Wake me up at 05:30." You and I were the only ones who thought that was so funny. So
5:30 instead of 05:30.
Instead of 0500. Yeah, that's brilliant.
And of course, this is Bruce Wayne's superpower is being rich. So here we are, back at
What's your superpower? I'm rich.
Yeah. So this is a great moment with the Atlanteans. Really fat. I love the design. I love the sequence, and it's like the whole time I'm just like, how can we get more of this? So beautiful.
Was that Amber Heard?
Yes, Amber Heard. She was in Drive Angry and some other stuff. But apparently, I saw some once again more Twitter photos of her reading Aquaman comics as they're making Aquaman. Like she's getting her hair done and reading Aquaman comics. Yeah. So that just in itself right away like makes me excited for Aquaman because the actors are really doing their research and not just going, okay, so...
Well, now it's part of the mythology, too.
And just needing to really know the actual character herself and knowing anyway.
Well, I mean, it's kind of research. I mean, if say, Amber Heard isn't a fan of comics, she didn't grow up reading them, so it would definitely be research, because she's playing Mera, who is a big part of Aquaman's life. She eventually becomes his wife, they have a kid, like, they go through this whole, long... story together, but
it's just the reason I said that is because I've seen so many times recently in recent films with Star Wars and other things where the actors don't have any idea. Well, and that's why I mentioned that specifically. And I do realize, of course, a lot of actors do their research, but a lot of the Star Wars, just other people that I've talked to.
But I mean, it depends on the actor. Like Heath Ledger, when he was taking on the mantle of the Joker, he was given like Batman, The Killing Joke to read and other stories about the Joker, and he chose not to because he didn't want to watch anybody's performance or anything because he wanted to create his own, and that's fine. It is always more exciting when you find out that people are investing their time into learning the characters, or if you find out that they're already fans. Like when I met Brandon Routh from Legends of Tomorrow's Ray Palmer, he mentioned that even prior to being cast as the role, or when he got cast as the role, he started reading Sword of the Atom, which is one of the Atom's biggest storylines, and even some Power of the Atom, which was my time with the Atom, and he just fell in love with the character. Now he's probably more knowledgeable about it than I am. So I get what you're saying. It's exciting.
And on a quick side note is that from the Dark Knight thing, he did apparently. I saw this thing on Nolan and Heath Ledger. They had an interview that was just released like last year that they hadn't released before that. And apparently their whole, at least Nolan's concept of the Joker was from Clockwork Orange, the Clockwork Orange guys, and that's how kind of...
Alex the Druid.
Yeah, anyway. Moving on, so that's and there's a really cool whole thing on it. Check it out if you get a chance. It's really cool stuff about Nolan and his whole concept, and he wanted him to be this kind of Clockwork Orange type character. Anyway, here we are again. Aquaman being a badass underwater. Really cool stuff.
Now, are those contacts or is those really his eye contact?
I have no idea.
They're pretty piercing.
We're all captivated now. It's over.
We've lost you. Everybody's just staring into his dreamy blue eyes. I used to have blue eyes like that, but I'm old now.
What's that glare? There's a weird glare on the screen. Oh wait. It's so stupid. It's our other camera.
We apologize for the glare, folks.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It happens.
Anyway, Gibbs.
Where are your notes? Notes.
Purple on the right. There, that one.
Okay.
So anyway, moving on. So anyway, sorry guys. Appreciate you hanging on. This was a great moment. Aquaman grabbing onto his horn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's like you think you're cool with horns, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna use them against you, and he totally grabs them and kind of does a whole whip around cartoon moment. There's like a cartoon.
Well, it also doesn't hurt that Aquaman is the king of the seven seas. He knows how to. He knows how to maneuver where Steppenwolf's not really accustomed to being underwater. So, no,
that was cool.
Yeah, it was a very cool scene.
Very cool moment. And then of course, okay, so but anyway, he ends up getting his butt handed into him anyway. But, anyway, so moving on, Batman does his really cool superhero jump here and land. I don't know if I didn't catch the land, but anyway, great moment. Alfred says specifically, How many of them are you? How many are you? There are you type of thing. Some of the cool, interesting Steppenwolf moments. The righteousness of power I thought was really cool. Is interesting.
Yeah.
You all love me. You all will.
Yeah.
Does this mean that the mother box actually has the ability to control minds? I don't know.
It was more of a I'm going to become your god and you're all going to love me whether you like it or not kind of thing. So what about Cyborg there? We're talking about...
we're going to get to him and for some reason... Hold on, let me see if I...
Batman kicking its parademon butt back there.
I think I didn't...
Hey, who's that guy? I know who he is.
Okay, I didn't get Cyborg images. Anyway, apologize everybody for Cyborg. Anyway, I was trying to rush through these images and get any... I do have a bunch of Cyborg images later on. We just don't have any from this moment. But we did talk about, let's see. Oh yeah, Bruce and Diana talking. Bruce was just trying to figure out what they were. Do they give power?
Yeah.
And Diana's like, they don't contain power. They are
power. Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any insight on that? Like if
I mean that's just a big. I mean, all that does is reiterate how important these boxes are and how much they need to keep them from Steppenwolf. You know.
Yeah.
It's a greater power than we've seen in the DC cinematic universe at this time, and that's another thing about this movie is it blows the lid off. It's no longer just fighting, Lex Luthor and the Joker and other costume crime fighters, or even a genetically created monster like Doomsday. It's like this threatens the entire planet. Like this guy wants to turn Earth into another apocalypse, and nobody wants that. Yeah. Nobody puts Superman in a corner. There's that Batman. Nobody puts Batman in a corner. I don't know. Nobody puts Wonder Woman in a corner.
And what does Wonder Woman say? Wonder Woman say? She says that this transforms them into the primordial hell. Transforms the Earth into the primordial hellscape of Steppenwolf's world.
Which they never actually mention his birth world.
What is his birth world?
It's Apocalypse. That's where Darkseid's from.
And so they are separated. And that was scripting to the the dream sequence or the flashback.
Yeah.
Okay. This Sack Hole.
Yes,
we talked about that.
Is neon green.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That was an interesting moment with Aquaman finding the glow in the dark neon green blood.
Yeah.
Green blooded son of a. Anyway, really cool. I love that. So water implosion. There was a moment where going back here, just real quick to the water thing. Mara does a really cool thing where she does like a water implosion kind of thing where I don't know what she does, and I didn't get a great image.
It's sort of like an
implosion,
really cool. Implosion, explosion kind of a thing.
It's a really cool thing. Can't wait. I can't wait to see more of that this December.
She's powerful.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
Moving on here, really cool art direction with this is the moment when they're in the tunnel in between the two cities.
Yeah.
And great moment. Did you like the crawler?
The crawler was cool. Really, I mean, like I said, with all its flaws that the story may have had, there's a lot to be admired of this film.
It was great.
Great action sequences. I haven't seen it since it came out in theaters. I plan on buying the 4K Blu-ray combo to refresh my memory. So some of the smaller details I've forgotten about, as you do with movies and getting older, but because I take so much stuff in, on a daily basis. But overall, again, for all the naysaying, if you are a DC fan and a Justice League fan, I wouldn't quickly dismiss this film. In fact, it's the only Justice League live action movie we have, and it could have been a lot worse. It could have been 1997, and it could have been Joel Schumacher's toy commercial. So I think they've worked really hard to bring this into fruition and to please the fans. And you're not going to please everybody. I just wish people weren't so hard on it.
Yeah. So.
I was cut off that entire time. Huh?
Well, you're not hitting it hard like you need to hit it.
That's good.
And that's anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
That's what he said. Hey-o!
Anyway, so just the Russian family, a lot of people had funny moments about that, just like thinking, it was kind of shoehorned. I was fine with it. It was something where it's like they had to have someone in there that's specific to save, because they were in a kind of an isolated area, so they introduced that isolated family. Anyway.
Again, that goes back to it's too dark. Now it's too funny. Like, they found a perfect balance between the two.
Yeah.
So it worked for me because, I mean, their characters were no more silly than, say, a Stan Lee cameo, you know, which is always a bit corny, but I love it. So, you know, I'm not going to complain.
And I'm gonna go on record saying that I actually hate every Stan Lee cameo. The only reason why I love Stan Lee, the only reason why is because it takes me out of the movie. That's the reason. It just takes me out of the
I'm going to say I have to disagree with that.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
So we're definitely in disagreement on that.
Yes. We will agree to disagree and leave it at that. Because it's just a personal level. It's, like one of those, it's just one of those things where...
We left it. Let's move on.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm trying to lie. Okay, so this is the moment where the Flash is like, okay, we're going to come back to the dark side thing, but because he does mention, he says for dark side.
What is he wearing? What is that? That is...
It is kind of a funny, it's like an 80s...
it's like in something John Wesley... That's like something John Wesley Shipp would have worn in the 1990s series. That's not... But it's not enough to hate the movie, that's for sure.
Okay, so but this is the moment where he's like, they're talking about bringing back Superman, and he says, what does he say, like a pet cemetery scenario?
Yeah, that was funny. You know, because you would worry, is he going to come back as a super zombie? You don't want that.
Okay, so real quick, we're going to backtrack just a second because we don't have the images for this, but Batman's theme coming back in a lot of these, and a lot of this under in the tunnel sequence. There's a lot of Batman theme in there.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, ironically, Danny Elfman did the score for this one as opposed to Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. You know, Hans Zimmer, after was it Wonder Woman, said, "I kind of want to step back from."
Well, he didn't do Wonder Woman either.
That's right. It was
his last one was BVS.
BVS. He said, "I want to step back from doing Superman or superhero stuff." And Junkie XL's good and everything, but Danny Elfman is somebody who has created a memorable theme, the Batman theme, which was also used in Batman Returns and Batman the Animated Series. He brings back little bits of it here in this movie, but not just that. Remember, he also uses a little bit of John Williams' iconic Superman theme too, which was kind of cool. There was a little bit of that.
He did, he used it in a kind of a funny way. Of course, there was a whole thing about that on Twitter that he talked about. But anyway, those were great moments, and it was really good to see. Of course, I was a Hans Zimmer guy from the get. You know, he sold me from day one on Batman Begins, and so of course I was always Hans Zimmer all the way. But with this, it still sold me. I still loved it. It's still great. So it was still great with
Dude, I can't complain because Danny Elfman gave us music from Darkman, Batman, Batman Returns, The Incredible Hulk, the 3 Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. The man, his aesthetic is made for superhero stuff because his influences are Bernard Herrmann. Now, I think had they done serious superhero movies in the 50s and 60s, Bernard Herrmann would probably have been working with Alfred Hitchcock as well as doing those kind of movies. Very bombastic, very larger than life, very memorable too, and that's important for me. I love hearing these recognizable themes. So that was a big Easter egg for me that made me happy.
Yeah, anyway, it was just... And once again, let it be said that I was a big Hans Zimmer guy, but I was still sold with this and still really, really excited about it.
That.
So anyway, I know.
I was just happy to
Sorry
have
to
Danny Elfman back.
Sorry to repeat myself, everybody. Okay, so anyway, and this moment, one of my favorite moments with Batman. Sorry, guys, I didn't bring a sword.
Yeah.
And that's when he has the crawler, etc. So
sorry, I didn't bring a sword.
And then, but one of the weird awkward moments at the end of the scene, Barry Allen just says, "Did he just bail?" Because Cyborg just like just flies off, and it's. I don't even know why he realized that the other mother box was somewhere, and so he had to take off to grab the other mother box, and that's what it was. But it's just funny. He's like,
he didn't have time to tell everybody. I got to go and do this thing. It set up for a good comic punchline. You know.
Yeah, it was funny.
Did he just bail? Yeah. No, that's good.
Okay, so we're moving on to the Pet Cemetery scenario. Here we are, finally catching up with the notes. Bruce defending science to do what is. This is a great line, actually. He says, "To do what has never been done to make life better." This is him and Diane. And
talking about bringing Superman back to life. Yeah.
Diane doesn't.
Spoiler: Superman comes back to life.
Diane doesn't want to because it'll risk lives, etc. But Batman is anyway. It was just interesting to see after seeing a changed Batman, a very changed person. He was so in love with the idea of bringing Superman back, and I was sold on that.
Well, it was at the end of in the last act of BVS, he realized that Superman isn't the threat that he thought he was, and maybe it was because of people like to hate on that line with Martha, because both of their moms are named Martha. So what? Like, it makes sense to me because it is something that would connect the two characters. But yeah, I like the fact that Batman's a little bit more like, okay, I kind of screwed up in the last bout, and I almost killed the man, and he's a hero, and we do need him. I'll always keep a little bit of kryptonite on me just in case, though. Just in case. That's Batman. Batman's always going to be the guy who, even though he trusts his other heroes, he's always going to keep their Achilles heel. Yeah. Achilles, just in case they ever go rogue. You need that guy. So.
Well, especially when he's the guy who doesn't have the power.
Right, exactly.
It's like if I were the one guy in this group of like 20 other people.
You would need it. Well, it's just like Green Arrow eventually becomes a member of the Justice League, and I'm pretty sure he and Batman have conversations like, do you still have all that stuff lying around in case we have to deal with these guys? Because it could happen.
It's a funny moment because it's like if you put it in a real world scenario, imagine if you're in this group of like people who are like could literally kill you with just like a blow of a whatever.
Oh yeah, or just I-beams.
Or whatever can kill you in a second. It's
super breath.
It's like you're gonna keep those contingencies.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really kind of a funny concept when you think about it in a real, realistic life moment. So. His Pet Cemetery scenario thing was hilarious, but one other thing that actually kind of blew past the audience that people didn't notice. This is my favorite moment, okay, so this is in Diana's and Bruce's argument, and Bruce is saying, or he just literally he's still ripping into her. So did help me out? What was Diana Prince's lover,
Steve
Trevor. He's like, was that Steve Trevor's fault? Blah blah. He's like continuously ripping into her, like about
he's pushing the buttons on purpose.
Exactly. And Barry Allen says, if she kills you, we will cover for her.
Because let's face it. If she killed Bruce Wayne, do you think Cyborg or Flash or Aquaman are going to fight her over that? He pissed her off. And she's really powerful. Let's not go there. It was a great line. Good. Especially in such a tense moment, right? It kind of it lightens things up, which is always good.
But him saying that we'll cover for her that, that's how he said it. We'll cover. I laughed so hard, and no one else in the theater laughed. It was.
You know what? I almost think that was as funny as Aquaman sitting on the lasso. That's one of the funniest things. Wonder Woman for the lasso of truth, and Aquaman accidentally sitting on that. Oh, really? I don't see it on there.
We do.
Oh well, okay.
Sorry,
so I jumped the gun.
Sorry, no, it's actually next. Sorry. I apologize. We didn't get to it. I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't write it down. My fault. Continue.
Okay. No, that's all I was going to say. Is that moment that we're about to discuss probably, in my opinion, is the funniest moment in the whole movie because it also felt like so natural. Like he's just talking. Aquaman's just talking. You're like, what the heck is he talking about? And then it's like, oh, whoops, because he's sitting on the lasso. Like that would happen, wouldn't it? If she just leaves her lasso lying around, you just lean up against it. Next thing you know, you're like, I so want to divorce my wife and marry you. Whoops, I didn't mean to say that. I don't,
Well, she said like 5 times now, the lasso compels you to tell the truth, and that's what it did.
Exactly.
She set it up for that. So anyway, so just real quick thing on here. This whole scene of the resurrection of Superman was really cool. They bring the Hans Zimmer music back, everything. The exact chords and everything was really great there. Really hit me here and everything, bringing Superman back. A lot of people had, thought this was a disservice to him, especially with the. Why?
What was the argument?
The grave digging was kind of like,
how else are they going to get him?
I don't know. Anyway, just people said it, so we're not going to dwell on that. Just it was still really a cool sequence, and it's like how are they going to make that believable to the audience? But it does defeat the purpose of in BVS. We see the ground floating. So do you have any answers to that?
Well, you barely see the ground floating. Here's the thing: is his body was in the ground, but I have no idea what a Kryptonian goes through in their decaying process, and if they don't have a bunch of energy around them. Well, and just for the record, I don't even remember Hans Zimmer's theme to Man of Steel. We've had this out before.
We won't talk about it.
He's Team Hans Zimmer. I'm Team Danny Elfman, John Williams for the superhero themes. But I remember the end of BVS with right before it cuts to black with a little bit of the ground shaking and that. But if anything, that was just to let you know he's not dead. He'll be back.
Right, I know, and so, but just and really quickly, on what you're saying about decay, I'm glad you brought that up because Bruce Wayne does specifically say in this film, and just the last scene, in that scene, the pet cemetery scenario scene, where they're talking
3 times fast.
They're talking, and Bruce specifically says, his cells. He says that he's been studying them, or whatever.
That's right.
He says specifically that his cells are unable to decay. They're incapable of decay. So that's what's happening. Is that his body will not decay at all, just because of his cells, the way the cells are.
So maybe that's what that is just kind of confirming, is that even though his soul, if you will, is gone, the body's still alive. And he's got a tremendous amount of energy, so it causes a little earth movement. That's okay.
It's just the reason why it's, for me particularly, it's the same type of thing that happens when in Man of Steel, when he's fighting Zod, and you see him kind of float up, and the ground floats up.
Oh, dude, even when he leaves, flies, goes to the ground and does the whole. I mean, they've done it in Smallville. They've done it in Superman Returns. It's that whole, and then flies. But also realistically, they probably weren't paying attention to that when they wrote the script for this one. It's not, or maybe they were and just went, it doesn't matter. It's just a way of saying Superman's alive. Either way, it's not something that distracts me from the story.
My personal opinion, my Zack Snyder opinion, is that Zack had a specific thing that he was going to do in this movie, but wasn't able to because of what happened. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna move on.
That's definitely possible.
We're gonna move on. So this whole sequence was really cool. Bringing Supes back, really cool. That's a great. I'm just going to leave it on that for a second because this is a great picture of them inside the Kryptonian vehicle. Yeah. Inside the Kryptonian Corvette. Whatever it is.
Which also, Which, we need to talk about him coming back before I can mention what's burning up the internet with the deleted scene right now.
Okay, so we were going to have the scene queued up. I apologize. I'm sure you've seen it already. Do you want to talk about? He's just looking at the black suit, right?
Well, so they bring Superman back, and they go through the whole thing of him being back, and I thought the way he was brought back, I thought was fantastic. Where he's disoriented, he's confused, he's angry, he's fighting all these heroes, and it takes Lois to basically calm him down. Almost a very Hulk moment with
it's kind of like
calm down. But it's what I wanted to see, because you can't do a Justice League movie initially without the holy trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, because eventually those guys leave the team. In all iterations of Justice League, all the main heavy hitters eventually leave it to the guys, Booster Golds and your Blue Beetles and your Martian Manhunters and your Black Canaries and stuff. So I think that when they brought him back, it was really exciting. It was really like, all right, we're getting the band back together, or together for the first time. And it's what I wanted to see. I don't have any complaints about how they brought him back. But there was a deleted scene that you'll see on the internet right now, or it's also on the Blu-ray release or 4K release, where Clark, after he kind of regains his humanity and his memory, he's going through the Kryptonian craft. And just as a nod to the death of Superman and the return of Superman comic storyline from the 1990s, where Doomsday killed him. When he came back in a black Superman costume for a while. They were even going to use that in the ill-fated, never-filmed Superman Lives. So as a nod, on the Kryptonian ship, there's like a closet kind of thing that opens up around Clark, and it shows other costumes, like a more traditional Kryptonian garb, and then that black costume, which was nice. I actually wondered if he was going to put that on in the movie, when he first came back, and I'm glad they didn't do that.
Well, honestly, I'm sure. They did tweet it when it was in production. They tweeted the black suit.
Henry Cavill did. It was his own tweet.
Anyway, so yeah.
And it could have been worse for all the people that said, oh, they brought Superman back or they didn't do it right. It could have been worse. They could have straight up given him that mullet that he came. When he came back in the comic books in the mid-90s, I don't know what they were thinking. They gave him a mullet, which he had for like 4 years until he turned into Superman Red and Superman Blue. Like, no.
I would have been fine with he didn't have to have a mullet, but I would have been fine with him having longer hair.
Sure.
And a beard and mustache.
The cells would have grown, right?
Like
the body's not decaying.
That actually brings up a really funny thing that I'm thinking about right now. The concept of having a mustache. It's like, okay, so he's been in a box for it's been what, a year? I don't know how long has Superman been dead in this iteration?
I think it's been I think it's been less than a year.
Okay, so it's been a few months.
A few months, at least 6 months.
So then having the mustache would make sense, actually.
Well, all they'd have to do is just attach a little fake beard
or they
to
just,
it.
Honestly, all they would have had to do is literally have him grow a beard.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't because he was doing Mission Impossible, so he
Right.
had the mustache. They could have just attached a beard instead of having this. But either way, it works. They CGI'd it out. It's fine.
It's just a funny moment. Now in retrospect, if you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, being that he was in a wooden box for a few months, he would have facial hair.
Longer, shaggier
That's actually
hair.
really funny.
Well, and for the record, he had a beard in Man of Steel. So, okay.
Yeah.
Then people would probably go, well, we needed to see how he shaves. No, you don't. It doesn't matter. These things are irrelevant. But if you do need to know, he uses his laser beam, his like heat vision on a reflective surface to like a mirror. That's how he would shave. I've seen it. That's how he does it.
But that's just funny in retrospect. Now that we really think about it, and forgive me for reiterating it, but I just have to reiterate it one more time. That's honestly, that would have been
fine.
That would have been your solution, and would never have created the debacle that was the.
It would have been less costly too on the financial end. Part of that $300 million, because of the $25 million of reshoots, part of that was the fact that they had to pay some group of guys to digitally remove the mustache when they simply could have just added a fake beard to the mustache and said, "Oh, he's just come back from the grave." And he's growing facial hair, and maybe his nails are a little bit longer. Who cares? But unfortunately, that's not the way it went.
And honestly, especially with having, anyway, I had something I was gonna say, and now I can't remember. Anyway, we're moving on. So this scene was really, really cool. Having him just fight the League.
Yeah.
Just really, really cool moment.
Yeah.
With Soups grabbing onto the lasso there.
Well, really say what you will about Superman. He's too powerful. He's too goody or whatever. But he is not the guy that you want pissed off at you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a god. Within the comic realm as well as the television and films, they have taken away a lot of the, what was perceived as his omnipotent, godlike powers. He can't fly around the world and reverse our rotation and travel backwards in time and things like that. I mean, he can die, but having him fight the League, it's just like, wow, okay, now if he was a really dark character, which you got hints of in BVS as well, you don't want to get on Superman's bad side.
Yeah, it was really, really.
That's all I'm going to say. You just don't want to get on his bad side.
Okay, so anyway,
and I don't mind the chest hair either. That doesn't bother me. People are like, super chest hair.
People, it's like, okay, so people are supposed to be waxed perfectly all anyway.
Right.
It's just kind of a ridiculous notion anyway. But, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my favorite.
Wow.
This is a great moment because she says, Kal-El.
Yeah.
And she says, it's great that she knows his name and knows his history and everything.
And you can tell she's like giving it her all, right?
The last son of Krypton. And yeah, she is getting pulled. And he's just one-arming it. He's just like...
She's probably the second most powerful in the Justice League. But even Diana knows, like, man, you really don't want to go toe-to-toe with Superman. Like, he's just pulling her with one hand right there, and she's so strong that, and still, it's not enough.
Great scene. I just love. Everybody did kind of go nuts for this scene. Every fan I know was going crazy during.
I think people were applauding in the theater when we saw it.
Yeah, they really were.
Man, I'm in love.
Once again, the really cool dynamic that we had between, and it's really sad because Ben Affleck will probably be leaving. We'll have a new Batman whenever we have a new Batman. It's just funny because it's like their dynamic, their whole back and forth through this film has been really great.
Yeah.
And you really believe that they
you believe that they're friends. Like, you actually get this feeling
that they really care.
Diana and Bruce are friends, and there's even a little bit of a flirtation. There was in BVS too, which Steve Trevor's gone. Clark has Lois, so there's always been a sort of hinted at from time to time in Superman, and like in Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross, they eventually wind up as a couple together. So I like their flirtatious nature, but I really like the way that the two actors played off of each other.
Yeah, and it's just a darn shame because I would love to see them like they do in some iterations. They do end up getting together in this.
Yeah.
So anyway, cool to see that. Anyway,
I mean, I think the obvious thing is, Superman and Wonder Woman would get together, but no, he's got Lois.
And if they weren't anyway, yeah, exactly. And that's the whole this whole universe is that's what it's his whole grounding point is Lois. Everything Lois does everything.
Well, you saw in BVS when he thought that Lois was the possible future. You saw that when he thought Lois was dead, he just lost his shit and just did what everybody was afraid he might do. So
well, didn't they say? I mean, didn't the Flash come back and say Lois is the key? I mean, Lois is the
she is. Yeah.
Anyway,
and he did.
So we're moving on. Once again, Diane Lane. My
Ever
favorite,
since The Outsiders, man, I think she is so good.
She's my absolute favorite. Favorite. I love her.
Favorite Martha Kent?
I
don't know. I have pretty much. I can honestly say that I think I've enjoyed every iteration of Martha Kent's not a character that's difficult to do. She's never been, has like a personality that's very hard to interpret. Unlike, say, Aunt May or anything like that.
It's just that she is, my personal opinion, she's world class. Like she
absolutely is.
She's like the second she hits the screen. For me personally, like when the second she hits the screen, I'm just like emotionally involved in her experience immediately. When she runs on, it's like when she and Lois were there. I'm losing my voice entirely. I'm sorry.
All right.
But anyway, when she enters this scene, I'm just, for me personally, I was just emotionally involved right away. Anyway.
No, I think she did a fantastic job. I think the cast is just first rate.
Yeah, it's really good. So anyway, we're moving on. So the great moment with having her realize that her son's actually still alive.
Yeah.
We're going to take a minute.
Yeah, that moment, and him reclaiming the farm for her, too. The Kent farm,
That was great, too. Okay, so here we are finally. Sorry for all you Cyborg fans. I didn't get the images before. I apologize. This is a great moment with Cyborg. Such a great, and
he looked great.
He was great, period.
Great.
He was great, period.
Like, I was not disappointed by Cyborg. I mean, I think he captured in the writing, I think they captured several iterations of Cyborg. I mean, there were a little bit of elements that reminded me of him in the Teen Titans cartoon. Not Teen Titans Go, but Teen Titans elements from when he used to be on the Galactic Guardian Super Power show, which was the first time I was introduced to Cyborg and Firestorm at the tender age of 9. I was extremely excited that they were putting Cyborg into this film. Cyborg traditionally is known as being a Teen Titans member, but has since graduated to the Justice League, and I like the fact that they just included him. He's an incredibly popular character, and the CGI on him was just really impressive.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It's like a lot of people had issues with it, saying they should have just made his suit real, etc. All these things. But when it's all said and done, the CGI is
dude, they open up so many possibilities of what he could do with the suit and intertwine with other technology and things that it just wasn't practical to build a suit for it, you know. And I'm sure it was kind of an embarrassing thing for him to be walking around, mostly covered in motion capture tights, but still, I think the end result is actually impressive, and I do think it's a leap forward in melding live imagery with CGI in a way that we haven't seen before. I mean, there's only this much of his face showing, and it's still, you got to see how expressionistic he is. And I liked, what can I say? I like the interplay between all the characters in this movie.
And as we were saying before, is that his part of the story is integral to the story, being that one of the mother boxes. I mean, apparently he is one of the mother boxes, or at least some other boxes powered his suit, etc.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly the details of that, but he's heavily involved in the mother boxes, and as a result, his story should have been fleshed out, in my personal opinion, a little bit more. Once again, the other 20 minutes we talked about, the scenes of him, playing football, doing his thing, being a regular guy, having his experience, to being catapulted into this why he's so angry and so he's depressed. He's a really...
Well, yeah, he went from being this really, handsome, athletic star athlete to being a cyborg. I don't think that it wasn't that his backstory was fleshed out enough, because I knew that getting his own movie, they're going to definitely do more of his.
But I don't think he's gonna get. I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't think they're.
Well, they haven't said they're not, so only time will tell.
It was one of those things that was announced, but just anyway, it never.
But DC and Warner Brothers haven't announced it. No, years ago, like it was announced as part of their second phase of DC movies. So with the Aquaman movie and the Batman movie, Cyborg movie, dude, Cyborg's huge. I mean, I
know, I agree with you, but I just don't think that it's gonna.
But have they officially deconfirmed that? Have they officially said we're not doing that anymore?
No.
So then we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just don't think that I don't think they have their stuff together. That's my personal opinion.
They may not have their stuff. Yeah. It may be years before we see a Cyborg movie, but eventually we're going to see it. And the reason why I believe that we will is because in the last 20 years, I've noticed that he went from being a character who was popular in the Teen Titans, kind of a minor character, to actually becoming a big and well-known character. You know, so I hope, we all hope. Let us know if you hope. I believe, or if you know if it's been confirmed, or that there is or isn't a Cyborg movie coming out, because I would love to see it.
We all want one. All of us want one.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
This was great. My man. And
he
does the.
Dude, when it came to the action sequences, Aquaman was one of my favorites.
They were really great.
And especially being a sort of fish out of water, literally, because most of his fight scenes are not underwater.
Yeah.
Being flung around and, riding on the Batmobile with the Trident and taking a leap into the air. I mean, it was just... And again, he had the sort of jovial, I'm going to fight some bad guys kind of attitude, which you're like, yeah, that's badass. You need a guy who's willing to just jump in there and just kick butt. And I think he did a great job.
This was that famous surfing a parademon scene.
Yeah.
Where he surfs it. I didn't get the whole thing, but he surfs through the whole thing. So anyway, it's really great stuff. Moving on. This is when they're finally heading to that place. So this is actually backtrack. Sorry, I apologize. So this is when they're heading that, but it's a great moment of them heading there. Here we are.
That's a good shot. That's a good picture. It's too bad Alfred and Wonder Woman are a little cut out, but
Yeah.
I love group hero shots like that. It's just inspiring. Man.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're moving on. Okay, this was the sitting on the
on the lasso.
On the lasso part. So.
Sorry, I couldn't wait that long.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Well, these are a little bit out of order, so I apologize, everybody. Great. I do love his get up. I love his costume. I love the Atlantean costume.
Yeah.
It's really it's very Zack Snyder underwater. That's what it is.
Well, and we didn't really talk too much either about how cool what very little we saw of Atlantis looked in this movie. And the fact that when they kind of go into the throne room or whatnot, or the Citadel or whatnot, that they kind of step out of the water bubble and it's oxygen, because you probably not practical to try and make it all seem underwater. So in his movie we'll get some of that, which is going to be cool. But it just looked cool. It kind of looked like how I had really imagined it, very dark and murky and low lit. You know what I mean? It's not. Because it's underwater, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be this bright utopia kind of thing. Everything's going to be covered with barnacles and seaweed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the hair and, oh man. And I wonder, when they're swimming underwater and stuff, is it CG, or is it like they're actually filming underwater? Or, because I've noticed that filming underwater has been used for sequences of people being in outer space and things like that to get the hair movement. Like there was an episode of Doctor Who that's really great in the second season where somebody's been blasted out into space and they filmed it underwater so they could get that sort of weightless hair movement kind of thing.
Wow.
So I thought, it just looked good, and I can't wait to see more of that in the Aquaman movie.
Yeah, and once again, let us all just take a minute and get psyched for Aquaman in December.
Pumped for Aquaman!
I am really super psyched for Aquaman this summer. I mean, this winter.
Plus, I like the fact that the character that most people have made fun of is now becoming like, people are starting to give him the respect he deserves. You respect the King of the Seven Seas.
I think honestly, the second that they announced Jason Momoa, everybody was like,
okay, yeah, I'm on board with this. Yeah.
All right.
As opposed to if they had said cast, I don't know, Zac Efron, we would have been like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm just saying. No offense to the guy. I just don't think he's got the weight to carry off a character like Aquaman.
You just have to hit it a little harder.
Oh,
no, I didn't even bother hitting it that time.
All right, okay. So I just love his expression here. He's just, oh, I know we're gonna die, and just he's through this whole thing. It's a great moment. Batman. This is a great. Man, I'm really losing my voice. This is a great moment when Batman jumps out of the back of the crashing Firefox or whatever that thing is called, the flying copter / plane, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Their vehicle of justice, the Justice League vehicle.
We'll just say it's the Justice Javelin.
Injustice.
Well, the Javelin is what it's called in Justice League animated, Justice
right.
League action
Right.
and stuff.
And so it's great because it's literally crashing. I don't know if you saw this, but it's literally crashing as the Batmobile is jumping out of it. So
Yeah, and that was an exciting moment too. I also like the redesign of the Batmobile for this and BVS. I thought it was it kind of pays a little homage to the 1989 Batman movie, you know, which I think the two most iconic Batmobiles of all time are the Adam West '66 series and the Tim Burton film. And the further you go with the Joel Schumacher movies, the more ridiculous it looked. But and the Bat Tumbler was cool. It's more realistic, more practical in the real world of what he probably would have. But this design, I actually hated seeing Superman rip it up in BVS. That really, when he rips the top of it off, I was like, well, I know he's going to get Lucius Fox to work on that thing or whatever, but don't do that, man. It's a cool looking vehicle, and seeing it blast out right as the Javelin's about to crash, it's one of those moments that gets you stoked. It's again, something to be admired about this film. They did the action sequences so well.
Yeah. And I do attribute that to Zack Snyder. Honestly, I mean these scenes were shot by Zack Snyder, and I'm sad to see him not do another DC film. Like honestly, if I know obviously he's probably not going to be part of this anymore, and I hope that he does get to make new films. Hopefully, he's still in good standing with Warner Brothers, and which I mean everybody keeps saying that and etc. But people are saying that he's firing, etc. But all these things, I just hope that we can see him do more films. But honestly, I'm really sad to see him not directing more DC films. And I get that people were upset with how he treated Batman, how he treated all those things that he did, you know, the darkness, blah, blah, blah.
But people think about how he got it wrong, but what about all the ways he got it right?
Yeah, there were a lot, yes.
And another thing, too, I mean, I do have to understand, you know, you do have to kind of understand, as sad as it is, and I would love to see more from him, but a lot of these filmmakers, they don't want to stick with it forever. They do want to, they do want to move on to other stuff. Yeah. It is interesting, though, that Joss Whedon jumped ship from Marvel to DC, at least just for this film. I don't know how further involved Joss Whedon is going to be, but I was sad to see him go from the Marvel universe too, you know.
Yeah. Honestly, it was really. Honestly, I would love to see once again our unique situation where we have Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder work on the same film. This is like an incredibly unique situation in the history of film. Yeah. These two guys are actually very.
They're different storytellers.
Not quite polar opposites, but very different.
Very different.
Extremely different, and they were able to collaborate. I mean, it would be interesting to see them.
Again, originally it was just on a writing capacity,
right. But I would love to see them do another movie. Like honestly, come on, like give us Justice League 2 with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon working together. Seriously,
dude. No, it kind of parallels the fact that, I mean, like we're living in a crazy time now with the fandom of our culty comic books and television stuff becoming so big. That you could be somebody like J.J. Abrams who can work in two of science fiction's biggest playgrounds, Star Wars and Star Trek. I envy Zack Snyder. I envy Joss Whedon. I envy J.J. Abrams. I envy all these guys that grew up with all this stuff that now get to play around in those worlds. And I don't want their lives, but I do want their careers. So, you know, that's all.
I'm going to make you a t-shirt, Joe, and it's going to have a picture of all these guys. I don't want your lives, damn it, but I
want your careers. Because, I mean, growing up, I thought, man, I want to be a filmmaker so that I could eventually, you know, do stuff like Star Wars. I mean, at the time, we didn't know there were going to be more Star Wars. We didn't know how big comic book movies were going to get. I was like, man, you know, I want to see this movie. I want to be involved with this film, and I want to be involved with Doctor Who. I want to be the guy who's big in America making movies. So you can go over to the BBC and go, I know Doctor Who's been canceled for 10 years, but we're bringing it back, and I'm heading it up. And then other people who grew up with that have now taken over these mantles.
What a great job they've got.
Seriously. So again, I'm going to reiterate it. Please, Warner Brothers, if you're listening, I know that this movie didn't make that much, but seriously, you're getting two guys who understand DC or just comic book characters, and understanding DC characters, and like Joss Whedon has wanted to do DC characters for a long time. Apparently, he's written a Supergirl script. Apparently, he's going to do. I mean, not Supergirl. I mean, Batgirl. Excuse me. But anyway, like honestly, like let Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder do Justice League 2. I know that will never happen.
Well, wasn't there? There was a time before, well before this new Wonder Woman film came out, where the rumor was that Joss Whedon, well before he'd worked with Marvel, that Joss Whedon had actually written a Wonder Woman script. And after seeing Buffy and Angel and Firefly, you thought, oh well, if there's anybody who can do a Wonder Woman script, it's that guy, because he has a clear understanding of strong, powerful female characters. And thank God we actually got a really good Wonder Woman film.
Yeah.
Without him, but still, I mean, would have been a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah. So, and they have the crime of being white men. So anyway, okay. So
now we're getting political.
We're not going there. So
parademons.
So this was really great. The purple goo / vines.
Yeah.
I think they're purple goo vine type, whatever.
Kind of crystal like.
Yeah. So, but that's part of the life force. That is the.
Well, it's part of the
terraforming.
Because as you can see, right here
we've got the volcanic potholes. You got the volcanic potholes coming up because Apocalypse is just like it sounds. It's this dark planet full of volcanoes, like the dream sequence in Batman VS, where you kind of saw volcano pothole type things coming up.
Yeah.
And it was like, my first thought was, oh wow, they're going cosmic on us. They're going all Apocalypse. So that made me very happy. Plus, look at all those parademons.
It's beautiful.
It's such a good shot.
Beautiful shot. So yeah, just drink it up for a second.
Drink it in.
Drink it. Okay.
Do you bleed?
All right.
You will.
That's funny that he says that to him. He says that back to.
Yeah, when that's another thing when they brought Superman. When Superman's resurrected, he does that whole reverse scene from BVS, where he grabs Bruce and he's like, "Do you bleed?" And it made me laugh because he knew what he was saying. He knew he was just rubbing his nose back into it,
Yeah.
And I thought that's funny.
But he says it so cynically. He says, "Do you bleed?"
Yeah. Well, he's
Like
mocking.
his face is...
He's mocking his voice.
Okay, because his face is just contorted.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is great. Batman just shooting stuff up.
Yep.
Yeah, and I didn't get it, but there's a point where he's having to go backwards, and it's a great moment. He's literally flipping around, going backwards, and shooting at the parademons. It's a great moment. Just great sequences here. This reminded me of The Watchmen. Just the design of the goggles and everything.
Yeah, it's a bit Night Owl. It's a lot like
Yeah. I wouldn't be, and I don't have the technical listings here, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he didn't grab the people who design the Watchmen costumes and things to do the costume designs for his DC movies, because, well, why wouldn't you? Watchmen's a DC movie too.
And Watchmen is so
it's not in the regular DC continuity, but it's a DC movie, and I think that's where it really proved that this is a man who's capable of
bringing these characters to life. So.
And speaking of which, we're all really, really, really excited for the Watchmen HBO series that we coming out. Okay, so we'll talk about that some.
Haven't really heard much. I don't imagine that doing a TV series would do any justice to it.
Well, I know.
It's not an ongoing series, so there was to cash in on it. There was the whole comic run of before Watchmen, but I don't.
But they are doing it. It's confirmed. That's the point that I'm getting at.
Well, that's
so anyway,
fine.
I'm just psyched for it because I love it. So anyway, we're gonna move on.
Well,
dude, I'm one of those guys. Like, I love the Beatles,
but I don't think everything they touched was gold.
So anyway. All right, so moving on.
It's just another cash grab.
Yeah. Okay, so my man moment. This is for some reason they got out of order. This is the my man moment where he's riding over yet. Once again, part of the iconic trailer that we all watched a million times. Great moment once again of Cyborg getting snuck up on by Steppenwolf. Great moment there. Just beautiful art direction. I love the art. So beautiful. lives in a mother like a.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, dude, that whole climactic battle scene was awesome. I definitely, I want more. I want more superhero Justice League.
I do
stuff.
too. Well, especially with this design, it's a very, Zack Snyder type, and I thought they got that right as far as making the alien stuff, the stuff that was from other worlds.
Well, it was consistent with
really
Man
good.
of Steel and
Yeah,
BVS.
exactly. So that's what I loved about it.
If not consistent with, Jack Kirby or anything, but still, because I'm just such a Jack Kirby fan.
No, I get it.
so-
I get it.
But it's like the way he created. They have the Batman costume. It's so reminiscent of Frank Miller's Dark Knight costume. So to have those little nods here, but not here, that's one of the very few criticisms I have for this film. And that's not very many. So
Anyway, great stuff. So Soup's getting once again, like you were saying before, you wouldn't want to have him angry.
no, he's got a good mad face too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see Superman get the mad face very often, but when Henry Cavill does it, it means business.
Yeah, he's great. And he's a great Superman. Apparently, he only has one more movie in his contract. Is that right? Or two?
Well, he's contracted for one more, but that doesn't mean that they won't renew. Like if he decides, you know how contracts work.
Well,
if they're doing good and they offer him more, and he decides to do more, he may do by film, or he may do another contract.
Right.
I'm not going to sweat that and let that worry that he'll be done. But even if he is, let's hope that his next outing as Superman is just as enjoyable as the first three that I've seen with him.
It's just that I don't want him to leave, and I want the reason why I've been tooting my horn about Man of Steel 2 is because, I mean, it's been what 5 or 6 years since the Man of Steel, and so I mean he's not getting any younger.
Yeah,
and so it's like if you want him still as Superman, you got to make at least one more before he looks like 10 or 15 years older. That's my.
Christopher Reeves did 4 movies between 1978 and 1987. So, but BVS is still a sequel to Man of Steel, while it's also a prequel to Justice League. It does serve both purposes, I think.
So
yes, it's not a standalone Superman movie, but I was fine with the fact that they were expanding that universe right away without doing a second second Man of Steel before introducing Batman and Wonder Woman and stuff like that. BVS still touches up on elements from Man of Steel. I mean, just the fact that Lex Luthor uses the corpse of General Zod.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a direct continuation of that.
No,
so.
anyway.
If he does get a second film, though, Warner Brothers, you need to go Brainiac. You need to go all Brainiac.
All
You
the
need
way.
to do that whole, like, what Bryan Singer's original intention was after he did Superman Returns was, this is reestablishing Superman. Next one, we're going to go all Wrath of Khan and do a Brainiac storyline. That's still, if they do a second Man of Steel movie, I think instead of Lex Luthor as the villain, I think we need Brainiac.
I agree wholeheartedly. Anyway, great moment. Superman dodging the.
Yeah.
Having his cocky moment, like you were having your talk with Ronnie about it, saying that that he's not cocky, or the people thinking that he's too much of a Boy Scout. But you're saying that he's been cocky before.
He's been cocky many times. I mean, if you watch the Superman animated series in the 90s, he's very cocky. Or look at Brandon Routh in Superman Returns when the guy shoots him in the eyeball, point blank. Bullet flies right off, and the guy just looks at him and he just gets that. I mean, it might not be overly, braggart, but
Yeah, it's just
he doesn't need to. Look at how powerful the man
There's
is.
a moment where he's just okay.
Yeah.
So all right, so we're going back to that, and of course this was a funny moment.
Sad fleck.
Well, this was a funny moment because this is where he says, because Clark or Superman, Kal-El, whatever, he says, oh, I know you didn't get me out because you liked. He said, I know you didn't bring me back because you liked me.
Right.
And then Batman says, I don't not like you. Like he says, he's just like,
right?
I
almost-
it was really.
I almost half expected it to be like,
It was really.
right? Which wouldn't have bothered me. It wouldn't have bothered me at all.
So funny.
Cheer up there, buddy.
It was just,
It's all right.
He was just like, I do. It was a great moment.
I think that his costume. I mean, look at it.
It's great, man.
It is
He's a
so
great
cool. Batman.
Holy cow.
So cool, and it's. I actually think it's even more impressive than what they did. So I like the Chris Nolan Batman movies. They're good. They're especially Dark Knight and Batman Begins. I mean, they're just amazing. His costume always bothered me just a little bit in that, you know, it looked like a paramilitary outfit with a Batman mask. I mean, it's cool, but I think Ben Affleck's costume, it does have some of that real world, like, you know, he's got to protect himself with body armor, but it definitely looks more like a comic book to me. And that's one thing that people have to realize too. When you're bringing these things to life, yes, you do want to make them realistic, but you don't want to overdo it. It's a thin balance between what an audience will believe and what they'll laugh at. And you don't want to make it too realistic, and you don't want to make it too comic booky. And that's a tricky thing. For everybody that nitpicks the ears aren't long enough or whatnot, it's like, please, tell me how to create a realistic superhero outfit. I wouldn't know how to do it. If it was up to me, every one of these characters would look exactly like they do in the comic books.
Yeah.
And that could be silly, so, you know.
Yeah, I'm all for realism and beauty. Just, this was really shot beautifully.
Yeah.
Great moment. And this is the part where,
I mean, that looks like that could be a cover of an issue, you know? Or
Yeah.
a splash page.
It really
Easily
could.
a splash page.
it really could. And this is the part where Soups comes back and he's like, is he still bothering you? And it's like, that's a great moment. This is when they're going to save this is when he's racing Flash and he's like slowpoke.
Yeah.
And this
Which is another nice nod to a long-standing debate in the comic books has been who's the fastest man alive. But to rectify that, the Flash will always be the fastest because his character is known as the fastest man alive. You take that away from him, you let another speedster or Superman or Supergirl beat him, then he's not, that defeats. But they don't have to hammer it in. They don't actually have to show the result. Just having the two in, it's kind of like an 80s buddy movie, you know, we got another adventure, and they did that on Supergirl with Barry Allen and Kara, and they've done it in the Superman animated series, and they've done it on the Batman animated series, and so for me that was a good way to end the moment. You know,
it's cool.
And also you knew it was inevitable that the two would like, hey, I'm fast. Oh, well, I'm the fastest man alive. Want to race? You know, but he's gonna fly instead of run, which is great. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of
because Superman does have super speed. You know?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I actually asked that question to myself back in the 90s or 2000. And I actually would ask people that all the time, and I hadn't read any of the comments that had disputed that, but I would ask people, so who is faster? And people wouldn't be able to answer.
Right.
And it's just funny. It is funny that it's been this ongoing thing, but it is something that I've asked myself periodically over the space of like 30 years.
And
so
I have to tell myself it'd have to be the Flash. Because otherwise he's not the fastest man alive.
And especially since he can time travel, it's like, okay.
Right.
So it's like, can Superman time travel? No. Well, according to whatever.
Well, with Richard Donner's movies, he could reverse fly around the world and reverse the rotation and go into. But the Flash can literally go on the cosmic treadmill and traverse the multiverse through time and space. So, sorry, Soups, he's got you beat there.
He's faster. So that's great. This was a great.
I gotta tell you though, real quick, just off the subject, I do miss Superman's curl, and I know that's one thing that's a little silly and might not look cool. Dean Cain didn't have it, but I do miss
the birth of the curl.
I miss
when was
curl.
When did that actually happen? Was it its incarnation?
Oh, I think that's that. Yeah, I think right off the bat, Superman had the curl. If I'm wrong, go ahead and comment that. But it was at least early on in his run. I mean, he's had the curl since the 1930s, you know, at least since 38 or 39. And I know it's kind of cheesy, but again, it's about the suspension of disbelief. If you're watching a movie about a man who could shoot X-ray, you know, laser heat vision and super cold breath and fly, and people believe he's a different person by putting on glasses, what's wrong with the curl? That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Love the curl.
It's great. Just beautifully shot. I love it. How it's like it's literally like this is our Zack Snyder movie, but it's added color. It's everything's pop out more color. There's less drabiness to it, which is what everybody wanted. Everybody complains, but
it is less dark than BVS in terms of color and lighting.
And from what information that has been released, apparently that's kind of the way he was going anyway. He was going to do this. He was going to bring the color. So it's like it's one of those things where we'll never know. We won't know what Zack was going to do because we didn't get to see his end result, etc. But that's just my 2 cents on it. I think that it would be really cool to see what he was going to... Anyway, we did kind of... So this scene's really funny. Flash is so proud of himself for doing that truck really fast.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Soups does the... he's like, oh, okay, I'll get the people on the left. Oh, okay. You get the, and yeah, he's got
Well, and speaking of the truck, I think for those of you who, like me, always look forward to comic book or movies based on comic book superheroes and crime fighters, where Barry's pushing the car with the family, it actually reminded me of The Rocketeer. I know it's not a DC movie, it's not a Marvel character, it's an independent character, but I think that I think it was a little intentional nod, because Zack Snyder strikes me as somebody who, what brought him into film were films like big budgeted films like Richard Donner's Superman, Tim Burton's Batman, Star Wars, things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't know The Rocketeer and went, that's funny, we can do something like that, just kind of a clever homage. I could be totally off base on that, and it may be pure coincidence, but it reminded me of that, and I like, again, just a lot of little moments in this film that are nods to other iterations of these characters as well as other films, you know.
And among all those things, we had music that did that too.
Yeah.
So great funny moment when we see everybody in the theater laughed when I saw that. Everybody laughed hard when I saw that. Once again, our illustrious Cyborg, great stuff. Once again, I would love to see him in a solo film.
Yeah.
Please, DC Comics or DC Films, excuse me, DCF.
DC Studios, do it. Just do it.
I think they're calling it DC. Yeah, they're just calling it DC Films now. Like there was a big debate about that, so
just do it. Don't think about it.
Just
tell the money guys to just give you the money and just do it.
It's like they have no idea how popular this character is. Like it's like they need to be told, yes, this is a popular character, and yes, he can do his. He would be great in a standalone movie about himself, especially his story. His story is tragic. It's beautiful. The things that he goes through are challenging, and he has to basically dismiss his entire future. And oh my gosh, and he says specifically in this movie, he says, So I'm not just a computer, but I also have alien in me. And so he's literally thinking, he says specifically, am I the next threat after Superman? Am I the next
and
threat
that's something to play around with. And here's another thing is, just because it's a cyborg movie, as we're learning from what Marvel's doing and from BVS, you don't necessarily, if Warner Brothers is thinking, oh, we can't sell a cyborg property based on his strengths, which I think is wrong, it doesn't have to be just Cyborg. You could still have Bruce Wayne in there. You could still have a cameo from Wonder Woman, or you could even introduce, future Teen Titans members. There's other. The DC universe is so vast that you could have standalone movies with these characters that still introduce other characters. Because what if he does become the next threat, even though he's not? Maybe something. There's all kinds of directions they could go. So they really should consider that if they haven't. If they have decided against it already, they should change their minds.
Especially since they brought about in this film. Now that you've mentioned that, it makes me think of more stuff. Sorry, we're going long on this episode, but I apologize.
And thanks for sticking with
us. But if you're actually still here, awesome, great, because we love talking about this. But but more specifically about this threat thing. I mean, he's the reason that they even start fighting Supes in the first place. Is because of his automatic defense system.
Yeah.
And so you could literally play off of that, something like that, like where he's having to deal with, local law enforcement, someone's dealing with, and he's just having to defend himself, and it's like he's like trying to stop it.
Yeah.
But then they literally see him as this menace, and there could be some.
And that's where you need more heroes. You need other heroes to come in,
back him up and kind of help him out. And
if anybody, I could see the Flash being in his movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and apparently that's kind of what they were leaning towards, and have him kind of be in his... Anyway, I just hope that they keep him in these DC films and keep going, whatever. So,
so at this point, we've covered most of the movie.
Yeah,
we've gone about longer than the actual movie itself.
Way longer than
so we do appreciate you sticking with us.
A lot of people said funny things said that they didn't like the humor about the foot. I thought it was fine. He's like, I don't understand why I have the concept of how my foot hurts, and this is that moment there. So, anyway.
That's a great shot.
It is.
Look at that production.
Yeah. beautiful, beautiful work on the art direction there. Cyborg and Soups. Of course, Steppenwolf fighting Wonder Woman, right there. That's a great shot.
He's huge, dude. He's huge. Is he? And he's actually bigger than Ares in the Wonder Woman movie. He's, you know, when Ares comes to fruition and gets his power and stuff, he becomes this big guy, and you're like, man, that's pretty massive. But this guy's even bigger.
Yeah, he's like.
And Wonder Woman holds her own, man.
He looks like he's about 15 or 17 feet tall in this.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like that's just a cool concept of like a villain being that larger than life character, god type.
Almost kind of reminded me of Sark at the end of Tron when Tron's pretty much killed
Yeah,
Sark.
I remember that.
And then Master Control, the MCU program, brings him back, and he's huge, you know, and he's stomping around trying to grab Tron and everything. And that moment just kind of, Tron's so influential on me that I basically think that even David and Goliath was influenced by Tron. Even though I know that's not the case.
Speaking of which, we're gonna do a show about Tron Uprising, and we're gonna do a show about the Green Lantern. And there are some.
I think it should just be
both
Tron Legacy, and Tron Uprising, where it fits in.
We will. Let us know if you want it. Anyway, if you want any of that stuff. This was really funny. This is a funny picture. I couldn't believe it because he's just like he's
if he had bedroom eyes, it would be like the Deadpool photo.
He's posing for he's totally posing like a Deadpool moment. He's like it's like a glam shot, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
That's exactly what he's
totally. And also, let us know in your comments too what you think about if you're a fan of the television series The Flash as well as this movie and how you feel about I'd be interested in reading what you think about the differences in the costume. Do you prefer the CW version, or do you prefer the Justice League movie version of the Flash? Because they're radically different costumes. I mean, they've got the similar symbols, but they look very different.
Yeah.
You know? And I can't decide which one I think is more comic bookish.
I do love them both. I think they're both great. So
they both are.
Anyway, this is a hilarious picture of him. Once again, Wonder Woman, and this is him. That's how what he's watching. He's just watching. He's
flying.
He's hanging out watching this happen. Anyway, and of course, with Superman freezing it up with his cold breath, and that's the last image that we have. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this.
That's our breakdown of Justice League.
It went a little bit long, and we do apologize for that, but I hope that you kind of stuck with us and kind of,
It's great background noise. You got nothing going on right now. You just kind of feeling like you're hanging out with some friends, talking nerd stuff. Just put us on, and here you go. And we really thank you for tuning in. It means a lot.
We really do appreciate it. And if you guys like what you're hearing, Joe and I have been friends forever, and we want to continue to make films. We're writing stories right now and films that we're kind of working on, and so we'd love to have your support. Please subscribe and or like the channel and like this video. We appreciate it.
And once again from the Fanaddicts, we thank you, and we'll catch you next time on the Flip Flop. And you will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 sound like this. Beep, 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 beep.